What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 4 of the Around the A Atlanta Sports Podcast. Blake Newsom joined by my co-host today, Mike O'Neill, here to talk with you guys about everything that's going on within the realm of this on the afternoon of August 18th, 2023. You guys will probably end up seeing this on the 14th or the 15th on whatever platform you guys decide to watch it on. We thank you for your support in the first couple. A lot of stuff to cover today. We're not going to waste a lot of time. But yeah, Micah, how you been? I see you got a new backdrop. What's been going on in your life recently?
Last Saturday, I officially moved into college. Still getting used to the college life. Started classes yesterday. Um, we haven't really started real work for real yet, but going over the syllabus and stuff. But yeah, I'm getting making new friends, meeting new people, and having fun right now.
And then for Connor and Dylan, I know they weren't able to make this episode, but we got a lot of stuff to cover. Might be just the better with the two of us this time around. The more people, the longer it takes to cover things. We don't want to keep people here for 2 hours every episode. But yeah, not a lot's really gone on in my life the last week or two. Just been kind of watching the Braves throughout the dog days of August. Been keeping up with the Falcons. Excited to watch them later. A couple hours after this recording ends. We'll talk about that Bengals game after this episode on what ends up happening. But yeah, without further ado, you ready to get into some topics?
Let's go.
All right, so you guys know the drill. Starting off with the most team in season. Starting off with the Atlanta Braves. Again, it is August 18th, 2023, the afternoon of recording. So we got about a week or two of stuff to catch up on, and we'll try to go through it as quick as possible. I think the last time we spoke to you guys was the end of I want to say the road trip that they had going into Pittsburgh. So we'll talk about this four-gamer that they had in PNC all the way up until this evening, and we'll start with this four-game series they had in Pittsburgh about a week ago. Braves end up splitting it. They win the meat games out of the series, while the Pirates win the bread games. Micah, if you're getting the reference, they won the Becca end and the Braves won the middle. It's a reference that a lot of people like to use, and I've picked up on from other baseball podcasts. But yeah, the Braves end up winning 2 of 4 in the series. Now, are the Pirates a good team? No, not particularly, but they have been playing better as of recently. They're definitely not as bad as Pirates seems to have been the last couple of years. They finally have a future. They're finally starting to pay guys. I really do like the future for that franchise. But the thing that really stuck out to me that series is the Braves scored enough runs to win every game, to win at least 3. They scored, I want to say, a low of 6 runs that series, and they only came away with 2 wins because the starting pitching was absolutely atrocious for, I don't know, about a week or two after the trade deadline, and it really made people like myself wonder if they really should have gone out for, a Lorenzen or Eduardo Rodriguez of some sort. Even Lance Lynn, who's done incredible things for the Los Angeles Dodgers in his first 4 starts. We'll talk about that in a little bit, though. But yeah, the Braves' offense was absolutely incredible this series. The bullpen was too. I'm pretty sure they only gave up 2 runs in a matter of 4 games. We'll take that any day of the week. But yeah, the starting pitching just had to be better. Strider gets rocked around. He gives up 6 in 3 innings. Max Fried has a couple unearned runs that come back to bite him. He's only able to go 4 innings in his second start back. Charlie Morton isn't great, but the offense is just able to outshoot his issues. Excuse me, it wasn't Charlie Morton. Josh Rios. The offense is just able to do enough to be better than him at night. And then on getaway day, it was Bryce Elder, and he was great for a couple innings. The Braves got up 4-0, but they just couldn't hold it, which is just something you don't want to see against a borderline last place team. I know them and the Cardinals are kind of battling around for that last place spot in the Central in the month of August, but just a terrible series for the Braves starting pitching staff. Bullpen was great. When the bench was called upon, they did their job. Starting lineup, they put up enough runs for the Braves to win every game, but they had to settle for a split. Micah, what was your reaction to how that series played out?
Well, like I said, I just moved into college, so I haven't really been able to watch the games, but I've been keeping up with the scores. And like you said, we scored enough runs in those games to win it, but it seemed that the offense didn't have much help from the pitching. So um, that's what I see as a score watcher from those games.
So yeah, we spoke about it a second ago. It really started in that Pirates series, and while I will say here on August 18th and on, hopefully it continues this way. The starting pitching has kind of swung back the other direction. Morton has had 2 really good outings in a row. Elder was really good the other night about against the Yankees, and we'll talk about them in a little bit later. But as of that Pirates series, the starting pitching was terrible. Strider was getting rocked for 3 innings. Max Fried was only in his second start back. We didn't get great updates from Kyle Wright as rehab down on the farm. Elder is just the regression that we knew was going to happen at some point was just hitting hard and fast, and it was not the greatest time for those couple weeks. And you might say, "Oh yeah, Braves fans spoiled, yada yada." I don't know if it's fully that because we know how good this team is. But when
Mhm.
as an Atlanta fans, especially when you're a fan of the team that's on my hat, it's hard to take blown leads. It really is. I have a lot
Yep.
of people on Braves Twitter who say, I hate the Braves. I'm not truly a Braves fan. That's not the case at all. Am I a little overdramatic when they lose? Maybe. And I think a lot of that comes back to this team. I think it really does, not being able to take blown leads. But I also know how good this team truly can be. And yes, I do know they're sitting 5 games above the Los Angeles Dodgers for the top seed. They're 11 games up on the Phillies. The division should be within a wrap within, a month by, September 18th or so. I get that. But what I don't like to see is us not getting a starting pitcher at the deadline. We'll talk about the other deadline additions in a little bit. Nicky Lopez, Brad Hand, Pierce Johnson. I liked all three of those moves Alex did make. They've all been incredible, but he took a huge gamble on the starting pitching market. There were so many guys out there that have gone to new teams, been incredible, and they really weren't that expensive to get for people that say the Braves have no farm system. A, that's not true, but B, even if that was the case, some of these teams got them for little to nothing. And you know that the Braves would have been able to replicate some of the success that they had with other teams. Um, but it really made my heart ache for that first week after the deadline, seeing Bryce Elder regressing, seeing Charlie Morton look like a true 39-year-old, similar to what Max Scherzer and Verlander have been for the Mets, for the last year or two. Now, granted, he's 4 years younger, half the annual value, but still, he's 40 years old. You see some of the issues that Verlander and Scherzer and some of the older pitchers around the league have with Charlie Morton. They're just not the same consistent guy they were when they were 35. Bryce Elder, we knew the regression was kind of going to happen at some point, but we didn't think it'd be this quickly. Now, granted, he did look better the other night against a really, really atrocious Yankees offense, so I need to see it for at least another start. But it was looking like, well, shoot, is Bryce Elder and Charlie Morton going to be our game 3 and game 4 starters in the playoffs? We're going to have to trust these guys to win road playoff games. I don't know if I like this. We're hoping on Kyle Wright to come back and be himself. He's had a 1-year track record, and he's going to have like 3 starts to get ready. And you could say, well, call up somebody from Gwinnett. They've tried everybody. They've called up Schuster, Dodd, Winans, Soroka. I mean, they haven't called up Darius Vines yet, but they've pretty much called up that entire Gwinnett rotation. I don't think there's really much more they could have done. I feel like the Braves could have been Thanos putting in that last piece to the gauntlet. If everybody stayed healthy, granted, they could have been Thanos putting that last stone into the gauntlet if they got a Reynolds starting pitcher. I wasn't asking for
Mhm.
somebody crazy. I wasn't asking for Verlander. I knew that was never going to happen. I was asking for an Eduardo Rodriguez, a Lance Lynn. Now, granted, Giolito's been really bad. I'll bite my card on that one. But a guy like Jordan Montgomery, a guy like Michael Lorenzen, some of these rentals that probably were only going to take a prospect or two, maybe a little bit of cash considerations to get. And I feel like the Braves would have been in a much better spot because really you're just going to have to hope that Charlie Morton and Bryce Elder stay consistent down to the wire because Max has come back. He looked great the other night versus the Yankees. Max and Strider, if Strider is healthy, I think you can plug him in as 2 guys in the playoffs. That's fine. But you need 4. You need 4 to win a World Series. And are those 3 and 4 going to be Bryce Elder and Charlie Morton, or is Kyle Wright going to come back? Those are all 3 question marks, and you need to have 4 locks. Right now, we're sitting here at late August. The Braves have 2, so that's where my fear was for about a week or so. I'm glad to see that they've bounced back over the last week, and the bullpen has been much stronger since the All-Star break. Offense continues to mash, but yeah, Micah, like where are your current as of a week ago, where were your current thoughts standing on, the rotation issues?
I also would see some of your tweets, and it was a little worrying seeing how the pitching wasn't what it should have been, with seeing the elder regression and Morton showing his age. But like you said, it's good seeing them start to bounce back, and um as the season goes on, get Kyle Wright back. Hopefully, the pitching gets to where AA expected it to be at the beginning of the season.
All right, so of course the series after Pittsburgh, the Braves flew up to Queens for, as of one point, was thought to be a very pivotal series. Last year, the Braves had a 5-game series around the same time of year in Queens, and the Mets were able to kick the Braves' tail feather, taking 4-5, going 7 games up in the division. It looked like the Mets had run away with the East at that point. Of course, that would not end up being the case. The Braves would beat them 6 to 7 times down the stretch, including a sweep at the end of the season for our 5th straight Eastern crown. It looks like it'd be a very similar series this weekend. A doubleheader on Saturday, a 4-gamer. But of course, as the year has played out, the Mets had a terrible June, ended up selling. They were worse than a lot of their fans thought. Us Braves fans preseason told us they weren't going to be as good as the year before, especially after the Edwin Diaz injury. They didn't want to listen to us, and here they are battling with the Nationals for last place in the month of August, while the Braves are light years ahead of Philly and Miami for the division. And it was really interesting to see how lackluster this series was. Braves go in, handle business, take 3 out of 4 from little brother. Friday night, the same night Micah and I were watching the Falcons and the Dolphins, Charlie Morton twirls 5 scoreless innings. Now, granted, those 5 scoreless innings came with 7 walks. You do that against a playoff lineup, and you are not getting 5 scoreless. I can guarantee that. So while I will take 5 scoreless on the stat sheet going in for a Braves win, you cannot live with 7 walks over 5 innings. Charlie Morton has to be better. For this, then they ended up playing a doubleheader on Saturday. The Braves were 0-4 in doubleheaders against the Mets last year. They played in 2 doubleheaders with them, lost all 4 of the games. They were 1-1 this this season going into it. They had only lost 1 game versus the Mets that year, and it was this back half of a doubleheader in May. Ironically, a game where Charlie Morton lost. But it was not the case that Saturday afternoon. The Braves go in, calling up Alan Winans, the 28-year-old former Mets draft pick who the Braves took in the Rule 5 draft a couple years ago, bringing him over for about $3 million to pitch in the Gwinnett and Mississippi systems. And the Braves go to town on Saturday afternoon. 7 scoreless from Alan Winans. The Mets lineup looks like something you would see out of a Double-A team. And they put up 21 runs on the Mets. Nicky Lopez getting his first start in a Braves uniform, and he has a 4-hit game. They ended up crushing the Mets in this first one. It was 10-0 in the 7th inning. It was starting to rain. It looks like they might be calling it then and there. That would not be the case. The Braves go on to crush 11 more runs, and it was a very interesting turn of events to see that. When the Braves scored 10, I thought, the offense was pretty much done for the day. They go on to score. I'm pretty sure they scored 6 more in the 9th inning off a position player, including a 3-run home run from Nicky Lopez. He had, I want to say, 6 RBIs on the day. Sean Murphy and Ozuna broke out of their slumps in that afternoon, and it was a very fun game to watch as a Braves fan and Mets hater that Micah and I both are. We hate 2 things in life, right, Micah? We hate the New York Mets and we hate the New Orleans Saints. So it was very fun to see that game, and they didn't finish. They come back a couple hours later, play a national TV game on Fox, and it was back and forth for a little bit. Ozuna with a 2 RBIs late in the game to put us up 4-0. AJ Minter with a scoreless 8th. Ozzy Albies hit a tank into the 3rd deck in the 9th inning. Ends up hurting his hamstring on the play. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but we end up winning the second game 6-0. So on the day, Micah, the Braves won 2 games over their little brother New York Mets, outscoring them 27-3. One more run, I might be a little scared. But 27-3 is ridiculous. They do end up dropping the Sunday game on ESPN. I think maybe Snitker didn't manage that game quite well. Yanni Chirinos was on the mound. He walked 2 guys in the 5th inning. The Braves were up 3-0 after a bases clearing double from Marcell Ozuna in the 1st inning. Now, granted, the Mets had Kodai Senga on the mound. He is a very good pitcher. I think he's about to be their ace. But as soon as next season, they brought him over from Japan last season, 30-year-old. Very good pitcher. I'll give credit where credit's due. The Braves jumped on him in the 1st inning. He locked us down 5 scoreless after that. But what changed is when Yanni Chirinos walked 2 guys in the 5th inning to tie the game. Snitker left him out there a couple batters too long. Colin McHugh comes in, gives up all his inherited runners, and they find themselves down 7-3 after the inning. They fight back. They make it 7-6 going into the 9th inning. They get guys on, but it just wasn't meant to be. They dug themselves too much of a hole. But ultimately, I will take 3 of 4 from the Mets. We are still 8-2 versus them on the year, but I do think if Snicker would have taken Chirinos out when properly asked, they probably would have won that game. But, beggars can't be choosers. I'm very glad that they found a way to take 3 or 4 after splitting the series in Pittsburgh. The starting rotation minus Yanni Chirinos, who we talked about on the episodes a couple weeks ago when we first got him. Didn't expect a lot from him. I definitely think was left in a little too long. That was the decider in that game, but I'm very happy with how that series played out. And what were some of the funny storylines you got to see from scoreboard watching, Micah?
Um, well, that Saturday, the first game of the double header, I was driving down to college, um, and I just kept seeing Braves score, Braves score, Braves score, Braves. It was funny, and I thought my app was glitching or something. We scored so many runs that game, and it was crazy. It was funny to see how it just kept popping up on my phone as I was driving down there. And me and my dad was talking about it, and we both was laughing about how how the Mets were supposed to be this team last year and how they fell off so drastically compared to last year, and and well now we're at the top of the entire NL. So it was funny.
Yeah, you look at it, it's it's something only that like my mother was watching the game with me and she goes, the Mets will always Met. And it's very funny to hear her say things cliche like that because she's not one of those fans. And it's like, well, I know if you're saying it, then things are going bad. It was so bad at the point where the Falcons ended up beating the Jets 21-3. So it turned into a football score out there with the Nicky Lopez masterclass. His first 2 at bats in the Braves uniform were RBI double. That I'm like, you know what? Like I love this dude already. Um, he might not ever get out in his Braves tenure. Of course, joking in a joking matter, but had a 3-hit game, 2 hits in the 9th inning, including the a 4-hit game, I should say, including that 3-run home run to put us up 21-3. Any of the Mets fans still there were definitely, you know, gone at that point. And yeah, it was great to see Nicky Lopez finally getting a chance. Ozzy, it was either Ozzy or Orlando got that first game off and allowed him to play. But I guess the only negative storyline, and Michael will be back in just a second, folks. The only negative storyline to come out of that series was on Sunday Night Baseball. Ozzy Albies, I think was either rounding first on a single or was rounding first on a flyout. Either way, felt a little tightness in his hamstring and was removed, and it was a little bit of a jinx, being that Fox and ESPN, the Saturday and Sunday telecasters, said that the Braves had 4 Ironmen and how none of them are taking games off, none of them are load managing, and that goes for Matt Olson, Ronald Acuna Jr., Austin Riley, and at the time Ozzy Albies had played in every single game for the Braves that season. Um, and for Ozzy to have a little bit of a hamstring issue, they took him out precautionary. Sean Murphy also got hit with a pitch that night and got back swung into his helmet. He was bleeding a little bit. The pitch con kind of nicked him in his helmet, but he comes out, he's fine. He ends up playing the next night. For Ozzy, he took the next night off, and I was like, well, things could be a little iffy, but it turns out that he's just having a little bit of hamstring issues, and it's only a 10-day, which is fine. I'm glad that we're not going to be missing him for an extreme period of time. We'll probably have him back by the time we have this West Coast road trip in about a week or two. But that's why they called back up Vaughn Grissom. He has not played yet. Well, I wonder if we'll see him at all in this Giants series, which starts in a couple hours of recording. But yeah, Nicky Lopez has been fine in his first couple, games as a Brave. Even when the bat hasn't been there, he's had a couple games with no hits, but he's great. He's made great plays defensively. That's what the Braves got him for. He's a Gold Glover in his days with Kansas City. So that's pretty much your 26th guy off the bench as of this point. Love Charlie Culberson, but he just wasn't playing. I think the Braves are just trying to help him with service time pension. And to be able to flip him for Charlie Culberson adds extra depth going into this final push. I think they do plan on getting Sam Hilliard back in the near future. The issue with him is they had finally gotten him back about a week ago for that Pittsburgh series, and he re-aggravated the same injury that he had to send him on rehab the day he got back. So the Braves had to basically recall Forrest Wall back up a day or two after the fact, and we're waiting to see, because Hilliard has, when he has played, has been called upon. Has had a great glove in left field. Has been able to pinch run for us in the extra innings. was really good in April when Michael Harrison and Eddie Rosario both were having injuries. So I wish the best for Sam Hilliard. I think he'll be back sooner than later. But as of right now, the rest of the Braves bench has been great. Kevin Pillar has kind of bounced back to form. Um, excuse me. Kevin Pillar has bounced back to form. Travis d'Arnaud, when played, has been just as good as any other catcher in the major leagues. Still one of the best National League catchers, even as a backup. Hasn't really DH'd a lot this year because Marcell Ozuna has really turned it back on from April. And then now Nicky Lopez, as we just talked about, has been great. So the Braves bench and the entire position player group is amazing. So it's been good to see. So yeah, welcome back to Micah. We'll talk about Dylan Lee's rehab real quick. He's had a couple scoreless innings down there in Gwinnett over the last week or two. I think they're trying to get that exit velocity off his bat down, trying to get him to work maybe 2 innings down the stretch. Being that they still have AJ Minter and Brad Hand under other lefty relievers in that pen. But he would be a great get back for the Braves. I don't know if he's going to be part of the September call-ups because, Mike, if you didn't know this, in September your rosters expand from 26 to 28, which probably means one extra pitcher or one extra position player will be added. And I think the Braves are trying to get Dylan Lee back before that point, which will allow them a chance to bring Ben Heller back up, allows them a chance for Grissom or Tromp to come up off the bench in the month of September. So I think that's the plan. He should be back before the turn of the month. He has been great. I think the last thing they're trying to get him to do is be able to work a second inning, so he can cover some more areas of issue down the stretch for the Braves in the month of September. Being that Brad Hand and AJ Minter have been great for the last month or so. Knocking on wood, of course, while saying that. But yeah, while I was gone, I covered a couple of different topics. Any recap on what I was talking about previously?
Well, it's good to see with Alex going out at the deadline to get Lopez and seeing how he came out and didn't make Alex look bad and like you put his masterclass, and I'm glad it wasn't another Jake Odorizzi situation like last year. Like you said before the show, you said it was like a 10-day injury, so he should be back. Brought up Grissom for precautionary reasons, and it's encouraging seeing what Dylan Lee's rehab. Hoping he comes back soon and he's able to be the Dylan Lee.
And one thing I forgot to say about Nicky Lopez in that 4-hit game in his first time in the Braves lineup, dude also threw a scoreless ninth inning. He was Shohei Ohtani out there, 4 hits from the left side, 6 RBIs, a 3-run homer, put the Braves on the board in his first 2 at bats, and then threw a scoreless ninth inning. It's almost like the Braves fans who want Shohei already got Shohei. We got, of course, joking, we got Shohei for the price of 1/300th, and that's Nicky Lopez being able to throw scoreless innings, come off the bench, have 4 hits a night. And then for Matt Olson surpassing Shohei Ohtani in the home run race, it's like why do we need Shohei? We got Nicky Lopez and Matt Olson. So all jokes aside, it was a very good afternoon. And then as you said for Dylan Lee, great stuff that we've heard. And the Braves bullpen has been much better since the trade deadline, since the second half has started, and we've also gotten positive reports from Nick Anderson and Jesse Chavez, who are down at the spring training facility. Throwing off a mound, trying to prepare themselves to come back. And they should be back in September. I don't know if both will be, but I think we can count on at least one coming back this season. For Jesse's sake, I hope he does, because I know it's probably the last season of his career. It's tough that he was pitching really well and just got hit with a line drive off the foot of Miguel Cabrera, or, off the leg from Miguel Cabrera a couple months ago. But he should be back. For Nick Anderson, we got some good reports today from Justin Toscano and Mark Bowman, 2 of the Braves beat writers. So, the bullpen has been incredible. We'll talk about them for a second. We talked about Nicky Lopez. Time to give Pierce Johnson and Brad Hand some shine. They've both been acquired, from the Colorado Rockies at the deadline. Guys with low FIP, but pitching in Coors, your stats are never going to look incredible. But Pierce Johnson, I'm pretty sure, has worked on like 9 innings in the Braves uniform so far. Has not given up a run. Will that eventually happen? Yes, but in his first 9 innings in Atlanta, dude has not given up a single earned run. Has not been credited with a single run on his name. And the sweepers, the sliders, the fastball, everything is just moving great for him. He has moved himself up in that middle relief setup chart so much since being moved over from Colorado. Snit's going to him pretty much every other game. And then for Brad Hand, it was the only acquisition the Braves made on deadline day, and I was not mad at it. He's played on a lot of playoff teams over the years, and Dylan Clearfield and I talked about him 2 episodes ago, being that AJ Minter has not been himself for half the season, has looked better since about the month of June, like the entirety of the team, but has not been himself this season. And Dylan Lee with the injuries, we needed another lefty, and he's a guy to get, and he has not given up a single run either in his Atlanta Braves tenure. So I would give credit where credit's due. Like for the Braves Twitter that thinks I hate the Braves, I hate Anthopoulos, it's all nonsense. Like I'm a diehard fan. I'm just a realist at the end of the day, just with Micah. But I'll give credit where credit's due. I wasn't mad at any of the acquisitions at the deadline for Nicky, for Pierce, for Brad. They've all been incredible, and it's definitely really helped tighten up this bullpen. Would you agree, Micah?
Yeah, like all the additions we got at the deadline have been, boosting for us. I don't think none of the acquisitions hurt us, and Thoughtless, he made the team better with his acquisitions. Yes, we could have got another rental starter, but with the players that he had, I mean, the players that he added at the deadline, we can't complain about it because they've been good, and they're making Alex look good to this point.
Yeah, it was definitely a successful deadline. I will say I do think that that starting pitcher was probably the most important, but beggars can't be choosers. As long as Elton and Elder and Morton are themselves throughout the rest of the season, I don't think we'll have an issue. I haven't seen that from them in the second half. That's where my whole worries had come from. And if Kyle Wright comes back, like I think they'll be fine. It's just I rather would have had assurance instead of having to rely on ifs, because we know with Atlanta sports, if you rely on an if, the if ain't happening. So yeah, moving on to the Yankee series, which they played just recently, wrapped up Wednesday night, a night and a half ago. And I'm gonna be honest, I knew the Yankees had been coming into this series like very, very. They are just not the normal Yankees team this year. Their offense is historically bad. While the Braves have had starting rotation issues, they have had even worse starting pitching issues. Garrett Cole has been their only bright spot all season. Carlos Rodon has missed months. He was the big acquisition for them in the pitching market this offseason. Frankie Montas was supposed to be their 5-starter, former ace. He has Tommy John preseason out in spring training. Luis Severino is not the same pitcher he once was. Nestor Cortez has battled injuries. Domingo Herman threw a perfect game. He's still just not a great pitcher out of all people. I think a lot of baseball fans are upset that he's the guy to throw the no-hitter. If you know, you know. And just not the Yankees team that they are expected to be this year. Combine, the terrible offense with the pitching issues. They're an under 500 club as of right now. With the Braves sweeping them, the Yankees are under 500 in the month of August at 1661. Last place. They got to jump 3 teams to even get into the AL wildcard hunt. But, going into the season, I'm like, I've seen the Braves come into Yankee series playing like the much better team, and they still get smoked. And I said I wouldn't be surprised, and I'll eat my crow. Like I wouldn't be surprised if the Yankees found a way to win 2 games in this series, and I am so glad I was wrong. It was the first time ever the Braves have swept the Yankees in a 3-game series. I don't care what the record is. I love beating the crap out of the Dodgers. I love beating the crap out of the Yankees, the Red Sox, all the big markets, the Giants. All the big markets of history. I love beating those teams, and I think we're definitely in the mix all time with some of those teams. But it's still fun to say, you know what, screw you, and that's kind of what the Braves did this week with the Yankees. The first game, it was Clark Schmidt in a homecoming. I'm pretty sure he was a Woodstock, Kennesaw boy. Going up on the mound against Max Fried in his third start back. And, the Yankees put their first 2 guys on to start the game. Max is able to get out of the inning, only allowing 1 run, which was huge. Austin Riley ties the game with a solo home run at the bottom of the first inning. And the Yankees were only able to scratch across 2 more runs, one in the second inning with a 2-out, 2-strike double from Isaiah Kiner-Falefa to put the Braves back in the trailing column. But the Braves would go on to score 10 straight, which I didn't see coming. And there was only, I think, 2 home runs hit that night. Eddie and Austin Riley both had home runs, but everything else was just singles and doubles, just up the middle, through the hole, into left center, into right center, just hitting them where they weren't and testing the arms of the outfield. Well, I will say Harrison Bader and Aaron Judge, their center and right fielders respectively, do have great arms. The Braves were able to beat them to the plate many times, and it was just so fun to see the Atlanta Braves just kick the Yankees' tail feather. They win that game 11-3. Just a great performance overall. They come
Mhm.
back the next night. I'm in attendance. Luis Severino versus Bryce Elder. Bryce Elder goes 7 scoreless. He turns 4 double plays, 4 strikeouts in the night, got 10 whiffs on the slider. Some of the stuff we saw from him in the first half. The Yankees only getting 1 hit. It was a DJ LeMahieu blooper that fell in no man's land in front of Michael Harris. They almost no hit the Yankees. Acuna and Marcell Ozuna hit no doubters into center field for home runs. One in the first, put us up 3-0. That was pretty much the game. Acuna tacked on another in his chase for 40 homers. I hope he gets there. He's going to have to hit a little bit of a bunch here. He's at 28 here on August 18th. He's got 12 to get. So we definitely need to see him, go on a little bit of a homer spurt here before the end of the season if he wants to get to that 40-40, which he, has been chasing since 2018. But yeah, they have a chance to sweep him Wednesday night after a 5-0 victory. Eddie Rosario jumps on the rookie, hits a ball in the left center. It's over the fence and gone. Braves lead 2-0. That was it. That was all it took. Charlie Morton goes 6 scoreless. Pierce Johnson with a scoreless 7th. Kirby Yates with a scoreless 8th. Looks nasty in it. And Raisel Iglesias with a clean 9th inning. Had to face Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton one more time. Judge with a little bit of a scare hit a foul, almost home run that was foul to start the inning, which would have cut the lead to 2-1, but he goes on to strike him out. He strikes out 4 times in the game. Stanton rolls over, and the Braves sweep the bad Big Bronx Yankees out of town with an under 500 record. It was very exciting to see. And that's where we stand as of today with the past series. And regardless of record, Micah, how exciting was it to see the Braves and the city of Atlanta as a whole say this is the ATL, no Yankees allowed. You go back to New York where you're from. How exciting was that to see?
I
Sweep.
mean, it's just a whole lot of owning New York teams lately, and anytime we beat New York teams, it's a win. With the Hawks, the Braves, the Falcons, we love to beat the New York teams, and New York fans gonna learn to keep their mouth shut one day. But yeah, speaking about the series, it was nice, looking at the scores, and the other team, the Yankees, didn't do much scoring, so um, pitching had to be good. And that first game, um, we got 11 runs, 11 points, and that was nice to see the offense clicking with the pitching at the same time. And like I said, it's just encouraging to see at this point in the season.
And then, yeah, as you said, uh, for what it's worth, it seems like Atlanta has a really strong hold on New York sports. I know New York sports aren't what they were as 15 years ago, but it's still funny to see a little Atlanta that we are beating the crap out of them any chance we get. The Knicks Hawk series was a couple years ago, but it's basically a little rivalry and that sort. That's the only thing of relevance they've had in the last decade, and the Hawks ripped it out from them in 5 games. As Mike and I have both done the shush now. But for the Falcons, the Giants and the Jets have not beaten the Falcons in a near decade. I'm pretty sure the last time either one of those teams beat us was like 2014. We're in 2023. Granted, the Jets will have a very good chance to do that. We see them in December this year in their place. It depends on how good Aaron Rodgers and that team is and how good we are to see who wins that one. But the Falcons have been terrible for the last decade, but they have not been as terrible as the Giants or the Jets. They have not beaten us in the last decade. The Braves absolutely own the Mets. That's no surprise. And now sweeping the Yankees. I would say the Hawks and the Nets kind of go back and forth. That one's more middle ground. I don't think there's really any clear winner in that rivalry. But I mean, who really cares about the Nets in New York? I know there's actual fans of the Mets and the Jets and the Giants and the Yankees, but the Nets is just New Jersey's little outcast that moved across the bay. But it's really cool to see that our city has a stronghold, and they're lucky we don't have a hockey team anymore because we'd be giving the Rangers some run. I don't know about that one, but it's super funny to see. The Giants series, of course, starts. First pitch of game 1 is less than 3 hours from now. We're sitting here at 4:23. That starts at 7:20. Jock Peterson, and the gang, a couple of the Mets outcasts, Michael Conforto, J.D. Davis, Wilmer Flores. I mean, the Giants are a good team. They're sitting at the second wild card spot behind the Phillies. I think they're like 9 back for the Dodgers in the division, but granted, the Dodgers have won like 11 in a row as of right now. They've really pulled away. Uh, and gotten some control in the West, similar to what we have in the East right now. But the Giants are a good team. I know we see them this weekend, and as we spoke about, we see them next weekend as well. So hoping the Braves just take 2 or 3. I'm not sure what will happen in San Francisco next weekend. That's a tougher ballpark to play than most places. But let's just handle business. We got our guys on the mound this weekend. I believe Yanni Chirinos pitches tomorrow or tonight, but the other 2 games you got Max Fried and you got Spencer Strider, so you should be able to win at least two games in that series. The Giants' offense isn't anything great. They win a lot of their games like 3-2, but they got a pretty good bullpen. They got the identical twins out there, Taylor and Tyler Rogers, Camilo Duvall, one of the best young closers in the game. They moved Mania back there in a long relief, who's been better since being moved out of the rotation. But yeah, I'm not so sure if they'll see Logan Webb or not. I'm pretty sure they will. Who he's an ace in his own right. Let's just say, I hope Logan Webb's not facing Yanni Chirinos, because that's pretty much an automatic loss for the Braves, an ace versus a double A starter, put it that way. But yeah, hopefully the Braves just find a way to take 2 or 3 this weekend. Micah, would you agree?
Yep, and like you said, Jock coming back in. Anytime, um, one of the former Braves champions come back, I'm sure they'll get a warm welcome from the fans, and I miss seeing him in a Braves jersey, and I wish I was in Atlanta to go see the game. Um, but yeah, it's gonna be nice seeing Jock back in Atlanta for this series.
Yeah, it definitely will be. I hope the Braves handle business and win 2 out of 3. The last thing, of
Mhm.
course, they play the Mets one more series this year after this Mets series that after the Giants series wraps up on Sunday. We see the Mets once again through Wednesday. They're gonna have that all Legends booth again. I think that Wednesday afternoon or Wednesday night game. So you might want to find a way to watch that one, Micah, with Smoltzy, with Glavin, with Francoeur and Chipper, just like what they did back in June. So hopefully that
Mhm.
game lives up as much to that first one when the Braves came all the way back in that extra innings walk off. But yeah, that end of August road trip, which takes place after that Mets series, they have an off day Thursday. They fly out to San Francisco to face them in their house a week from today. 3 games out there. You end up going back to Colorado Monday through Wednesday. It's a very beautiful ballpark. The Rockies are not great, but Coors, anything can happen. I could see the Braves easily dropping a game in that series, but hopefully they handle business in Coors, because that's smack dab in between 2 really tough series between the Giants out in their place, and they go back to California for a 4 gamer to end the month leading into the calendar of September. 4 gamer out in Dodger Stadium. Hoping the Braves find a way to go over 500 in that road trip. It would be ideal if they found a way to take 2 or 3 in San Francisco and Colorado, and they find a way to split in LA. Splitting in LA means that they don't get any ground on us. Hopefully, we're up 4 games as of today. Hopefully, we're up like 6 going into that series. They've won 11 in a row. They're going to cool down eventually. So I'm hoping to go into that series like up 6 games. You find a way to split a series in LA. The Braves have not done that in a long time. They really hadn't won many games out in Dodger Stadium at all until the last year or two. It seems like every year we went out there, we basically just get swept out of our minds. But finding a way to take 2 of 4, keep them 5 or 6 games back from you with less than a month to play, and asserting dominance down the stretch would, I think, be really huge. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything for the Braves has been covered. Mike, are you ready for the Falcons?
Let's go.
All right, guys. So a week from today of recording, the Falcons played their first preseason game, and that was against the Miami Dolphins, and Falcons won with a 19-3 victory. Pretty dominating performance. I think the total yards did end up going in the Miami favor, but pretty much everything else in the stat book, the Falcons dominated a playoff team. They're expected to be better this year than they were last year. I know that's a really tough division, so yeah, there could easily be an underperforming team with a lot of talent. Who knows if it'll be them, if it will be New York, Buffalo, New England. I mean, that's just a really tough conference in general. The AFC is definitely a lot more stacked than the NFC. Not going to deny that. But yeah, Mike, I'll give you the floor. What did you like seeing from this game, especially if the Falcons found a way to win?
One word: defense. Defense, defense, defense. That was one of the best, even though it was preseason, one of the best defensive games I've seen from the Falcons in a while. And you could see what the system that Ryan Nielsen is putting in, and it's really encouraging to see. The Falcons easily won this game on defense. Um, having the Dolphins with 3 interceptions and a fumble. Um, that that watching the defense is really encouraging for me to for us to watch with Ryan Nielsen.
Yeah, as you said, regardless of a preseason game, when have we ever seen the Falcons force 3 interceptions and have 5 sacks? A couple of them coming on third down. What was huge was they had that third down sack with 3 minutes to go to force a Miami punt. Atlanta still led 6-3 as of that point in the game, and we talked about it, before we started recording. D. Alford with a chance to punt return, but he took it to the house.
Yeah,
Touchdown.
from nothing. He
Yeah,
had
yeah.
no lanes and made something out of nothing.
Took it all the way to the house, had one man to beat. It was the punter. He wasn't getting taken down. And I think he pretty much secured him a roster spot with that game. I think he was already pretty much going to make the roster. He had a great year last year. He grew up a Falcons fan, was a Canadian football legend, found his way back into the NFL under Terry Fontenot. And yeah, he was really good for what it was worth last year in the slot. Took over Darren Hall's role really nicely down the stretch. And the Falcons brought him back on another deal this year. And as I said, he grew up a Falcons fan at home, so he loves being here regardless of what his role is. He took a punt return to the house. And yeah, pretty much the next series, Skylar Thompson throws another pick six, and Atlanta pretty much ran the remaining fans out of the building. The Dolphins broadcast, they were crying about 28-3, and when they haven't won a playoff game in like 25 years. But that's a story for another day. But yeah, the only negative to that game, and minus which we'll talk about here in just a second, is it wasn't a very clean game from Mike Hughes in his minutes. He got burnt on third down a couple times, but DeMarco Hellams had a really great game. The 7th-round safety out of Alabama laid the hit stick a couple times, had a little bit of a tackle issue, but we knew that was what we were kind of dealing with. There was a reason he was a 7th-rounder, but he looked like Keanu Neal out there with the interception, laying the hit stick a couple times. Nate Landman had a couple big plays. Same with Huggins. Huggins is another one of those guys we poached from New Orleans in the offseason. He looks like him and Timmy Horn are pretty much going to make the team as depth guys as of right now. We'll see them again later tonight. Carlos Washington and I forget how to pronounce the other running back's name, the guy who scored the touchdown. Any help here, Micah? It's like Ibu Kani. I don't.
Igu Buke,
something like that. For those who watch the
first
game,
name Godwin.
Yeah, Godwin. We'll refer to him as Godwin. For those who know who watch the game, you know who I'm talking about. Him and Carlos Washington have both had great camps, and they're battling for that 4th running back spot with Caleb Huntley being put, cut with pay, and I wish him well with the Achilles injury. Maybe if he comes back healthy next year, we bring him back. Who knows? But still hope that the Duke's future is bright. The Falcons will probably end up carrying 4 backs. We talked about this before the show started, Michael. They'll probably put Rakovich, the other fullback, on the practice squad, give Keith Smith and Parker Hesse another year, which kind of leaves room for a 4th back with Cordero having some of the injury issues and Bijan being a rookie. They'll probably bring back a 4th back, and it's probably going to be between Carlos Washington and Godwin for that 4th back. And I feel like Godwin, with the touchdown and the consistent runs he had, it seemed like he looked a lot like Algier out there, running behind the tackles, getting 4 yards a pop. Jalen Mayfield had a much better game at the tackle position, and he sprung him a couple holes. Only had that one touchdown, which was a wide open hole. You and I could have scored with that blocking, with just walking into the end zone. But I think he probably has the leg up on Carlos Washington as of right now. But I do expect one of those guys to make the roster as that 4th running back spot. Who would you say has the upper hand as of right now going into tonight, Carlos or Godwin?
I'm gonna agree with you with Godwin. Just seeing the game, he looked like he fits Arthur Smith's system, and he had a couple of good runs that stuck out to me, and he's also a kick returner, and he did pretty good in Seattle with it. So I would say that Godwin would make the roster over Washington.
And then also, what about DeMarco Hellams? Would you agree that he was one of the standouts in this game?
Absolutely. Like we talked about in the previous episode with Nielsen, like the physicality in the secondary and the DBs, that's been one of his focuses, and we seen that a couple of times with how you referred to it as he laid the hit stick a couple of times. And um like I'm a person that loves defense. I really love defense, and to see that is that just makes me happy. And it's like Falcons are gonna getting that defense back that we had in that Super Bowl year, and hopefully we can surpass that with years to come and more experience, and next year with more money.
I don't know if our defense was great the Super Bowl year. I think it was a lot better the year after, the first year at the Benz. But like other than like 2017 and like 2012, when's the last time we've had a competent defense? That's why I don't care. It's a preseason game. It's like, the Falcons have had a lot of hate all offseason from many fan bases, from many parts of the media. I don't care that it was a preseason game and that we won. I really don't. It showed. It's what you texted me during the game, Micah. We saw what we wanted, and we
Hmm.
saw it with the depth. You see it with the depth. You have a feeling they're going to be able to translate it with the starters, and it was just beautiful to see. Side question here: who has the better mustache, Ryan Nielsen or Arthur Smith? And will we see Dave Ragoni end up growing one here before the season starts?
um, I would say it looked better on Nielsen, but I like I like the chemistry that they're showing with the mustache, and it look like it's becoming a trend within the Falcons organization with Troy Anderson as also rocking the stash.
Yeah, Matt Logan Woodside might as well grow one as well. All the white boys, like you already see it with Strider and another couple pieces on the Braves team. Who's a Hawks player that should grow out a mustache? Bogey?
Um,
I don't know. Too light of hair. Well,
if Kaminsky was still here, I would
yeah,
see.
or Vita, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, Atlanta's very much as I have a father who's had a mustache my whole life, so it's very cool to see the mustache game coming back here in the 2020s. I'm pretty sure Top Gun Maverick had a huge part in it. That's that's for certain. But one of the only negatives, other than Mike Hughes being dusted in coverage for most of the game, but that's why he has the chance to be a punt returner. Should we
Mhm.
be worried about our guy, one of the best kickers in the league, Younghoe Koo? Missed two PATs in this one, the only chances he got. I wonder if they'll maybe give him a field goal opportunity tonight or next week against the Steelers just to get him uh, the reps. I heard a couple jokes from the broadcast and even from like side broadcasts, aka the Falcoholic, which shout out to them. I'll probably be watching their play-by-play again tonight. They said that Koo wearing the 6 and not the 7 is throwing off his balance a little bit and it's causing him to drag a little left and right. I also know it was Miami. It was probably a little slippery, a little humid, but I
Mhm.
would still like to see him clean it up. I'll be a little worried. I'm not gonna lie if he's missing PATs again tonight because that would be a second week in a row. When you look back at last year, he wasn't really the same Koo of years previous. He missed a couple kicks he probably would have had in years previous, but I mean, for granted, we found him off the street. He's done great things replacing Matt Bryant. That's one thing I will give the Falcons organization credit for. They've always had a really good kicker. Before
Mhm.
Matt Bryant, they had Morton Anderson. Before Morton Anderson, they had another borderline Hall of Famer. We've had four really good kickers in a string in a row now. Even Tavecchio was really good in the year he had to play. That's over the years we've choked a lot of games, but whenever we've had the chance to get Matty Ice, and hopefully it continues on with Desmond or whoever in the future. Whenever we've had a chance to end the game with Matt and the kicker, things go well for us. It's very weird to see our kicker struggle, but yeah, like what did you see from Koo, and should we be worried?
Um, well, like you said, they was in Miami for they was there for joint practices, so they was in Miami longer than they usually would be if they was going to away games. So maybe it was just him sleeping in a different bed for too long or something. But like you said, if he's missing PATs or field goals this week, I'll be worried. But I wasn't too worried after that game. Cause we know the player that Koo is. He's gonna go out and put in work and work even harder after that. And so at this point, I'm not worried about him. But if the misses continue today, that's when I will begin worrying.
Yeah, I'm my panic level is probably about a 3 out of 10 right now. Like if I see it again tonight, I'll be like, oh, what's now you're at home. Now it's been another week. What's going on? That's why like I know they didn't kick any field goals Friday night. Ironically, the Dolphins did, and that's the only reason they scored on the Falcons. It took them 53 minutes in a preseason game via 50-yard field goal to score on the Falcons, but we're still trash according to the national media. But I
But
think yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
my question to you is, if Koo isn't able to bounce back and he continues missing field goals even going into the season, how big of a problem will that be for the Falcons this year?
Well, it'll definitely not put us in a situation we want to be because we know that, like, at the end of the day, we know Heineke and Ritter aren't going to win us a Super Bowl. We know that they're
Hmm.
not going to be perfect. We know that they're going to be better than what people think,
Hmm.
especially with the weapons. But there's going to be some drives where the running game stalls out. Ritter and Heineke aren't throwing the passes we need them to, and we're going to have to kick three.
Hmm.
And in the last couple of years, we've been able to hit them from 54, 55 indoors. If we can't do that this year, I don't know. I think that's a little bit of an issue. So that's why I hope that the Falcons at least kick a field goal tonight, whether it's the end of half, whether it's second half, and even if it's the first half and the starters are out there. If we have a chance to kick a field goal, at least kick one tonight. Let Koo hit one. Let's see it. Let's see him go through the post. Let's hear Koo for three, and
Cool.
I feel like that'll kind of set our worries away. As long as he doesn't miss a PAT tonight and he gets one kick field goal attempt, and like
Hmm.
if he has a coup night where he just doesn't when he hits the field goal that I assume he'll get, and he misses the PATs, I'm like, oh yeah, he's good. He's home. He bounced it. I'm sure he thought about it this week. I mean, you saw the post game on Friday night. He was a little upset at himself. He's like, damn, I didn't do my job, and
Hmm.
that's what he prides himself on. And I think they just got to give him a chance tonight. Let him hit a field goal. Let him see one go through the post. As long as he doesn't miss the PATs, assuming the Falcons score a touchdown tonight, um, he should. I think he'll be fine. It
Yeah.
depends on how he performs this game because that'll be 2 weeks in a row. Now you're at home. What's going on?
Hmm.
Moving on here. Let's talk about the third string quarterback who was slanging the rock around in Miami. Logan MFing Woodside. Looked very competent. Now, granted, the Dolphins didn't play their starters either. He ended up facing off against Mike White and Skylar Thompson. But for what it was worth, he got a little screen happy in that second half. I think Jalen Mayfield had him get sacked at least once or twice. But all things considered, he had some dimes to Tucker Fisk, to Ali, to Penny Hart, a couple slip screens to Godwin and Carlos. Like I think Parker Hesse had a reception or two as well. I liked what I saw out of Logan Woodside. I hope he doesn't have to play a game for us in the regular season, but I think it gave Arthur Smith enough notice to say, you know what, I think we'll be fine, carrying a third quarterback going into the season in case something happens to Taylor or Desmond. Um, what did you like that you saw?
Um, well, this is another Tennessee guy. Oh well, he was in Tennessee with Arthur, so that was
Yep.
that connection. And he went 14 to 23 through 146 yards. And the he could have had more completions. Had a couple of drops that he placed right in the receivers catch radius, but we had a couple of drops, but I really enjoyed watching him play, especially in the first half. Seeing how accurate he was, and he he gave his receiver a chance on each and every single one of those passes, and were there a couple of times he could have made a better decision? Yeah, it was like, for example, one of the times he was running and he could have thrown the ball away or checked it down, but instead he slid and took a sack. But yeah, it's a third string running back, so um, that would be a problem if he was my starting quarterback. So, but like I say, he's third string, so I don't have really many complaints. I enjoyed watching him play last weekend. And like you said, gave he gave Arthur Smith and Terry Fontenot reason to bring along a third quarterback in case Ritter or Heineke happens to get injured. Knock on wood.
Yeah, I think he pretty much played a clean game too. I don't think there was any turnovers, a fumble, or an interception. I think he was clean. I don't think he threw a pick. I'm like 90% sure.
There
But
was no picks.
very, very good from what you wanted to see out of a third stringer. Hopefully, the Falcons fan base is like, oh, this guy's our starter. It's not Desmond. Hashtag who threw that? Am I right? Hashtag
Yep.
who threw that? And
Mhm.
hopefully we'll see him in action tonight. We'll talk about him in a little bit. But yeah, talking about the week of Miami in a whole, they played what three days of joint practice. They end up playing a game on Friday night. Just talk about domination from
Yep.
Atlanta all week long. The 3 days of joint practices down in the Garden, the Miami Gardens that they're in. For those who didn't get that reference, I'm sure you did, but just for assurance, I'm not talking about MSG or TD. But those 3 days they had down there were great, and it continued on Friday night. They pretty much dominated Miami from start to finish. Miami had 3 trips to the red zone. They got no points. None. Falcons were able to bend but don't break. Will those 3 points turn into field goals or possibly touchdowns with the two on the field? Maybe. But the Falcons' red zone defense was great. Third down sacks
Mhm.
were plentiful. And they bullied them in the trenches all week long. Christian Wilkins
Yep.
was definitely knew who some of the players were at the end of the week after not knowing on Wednesday. But that's a playoff team from last year. I know they were only 9-8, but they were very good throughout most of the season. It took two a second concussion to derail their season. They had played very good all year. I'm pretty sure they were like 8-4 at one point. They came crashing down to earth. Had to beat the Jets to make the playoffs at the very end of the year. But for what it was worth, that was a playoff team that the Falcons faced off with, and they just beat the crap out of them. And regardless of the Dolphins beat writers and the fan base saying, "Oh well, we'll beat you guys in the regular season. You got lucky." You guys said that 2 years ago. You beat us in the preseason. You made fun of us. We came back about 2 months later and absolutely beat the snob out of you. In 2021, I know Brian Flores was your head coach at that point, but we had 1/5 the roster talent we did now. Like Miami Dolphins fans have to stop thinking we're these scrubs. Don't feel bad. Really,
Yep.
don't feel bad about us beating you guys for a couple days. We are not the same Falcons. I don't know how many times we have to tell these people, but we're not. And any other final thoughts about the week of Miami as a whole?
um, like you said, that offense DB definitely knows the Falcons are now. And,
He knows who Desmond is.
like on the it was this one Dolphins reporter, and I really liked his work. He wasn't being biased. You couldn't tell which team he was a fan of, and he was giving really real good analysis, and he was saying how the Falcon, like both team defenses were dominated, but he really had an emphasis on what the Falcons defense was doing, especially the line. The Dolphins couldn't really contain our defensive line, and that's real encouraging because if you watch the Falcons, we haven't had a good D line in how long? And like I said, I love defense, and I'm just ready to see the full team out there come week one.
Yeah, we'll talk about the full team here for just a second. Two roster moves made this week. Michael Walker was cut after that week 1 preseason. Kind of sad to see because we're already a little bit thin at linebacker. Rashawn Evans. The Falcons do bring in Frank Ginda, the USFL Player of the Year. I think had another player who was on the Saints practice squad for a couple years. Just keep poaching them as much as we can at this point. Like I don't care, I really don't. Just bring in as many Saints players as possible. But the Falcons lose 2 players. We'll touch on Michael Walker here more in just a second. But I think the more important thing is the Falcons lose 2 tackles for the season. Hennessy more of a guard center, but also Ethan Greenridge. Like another guy they got from New Orleans to replace German Ifedi and to push Jalen Mayfield down the depth chart. Both of them have to get surgery. And I really don't like hearing that. The Falcons do clear up a little bit of money. They're sitting at like $12 million in cap space right now. They'll probably have closer to about $16 million going into that bye week before the regular season starts. They have to go get another alignment. They have to. They have to go get another depth alignment. Matt Hennessy, we were hoping he wasn't going to be the starter. We were hoping that Bergeron beat him out like normal, but and even if that was the case, like Hennessy was still a 3rd round pick. before Dalman took him over last year, he was looking to be a solid NFL starting center. Still one of the top backups, I would say, especially for Falcons O line in terms of the last years. But he's on a contract year. I wonder, like we talked about this off camera before the show, Mike. I wonder if this means that the Falcons will be able to bring him back on a cheaper deal due to the injury. But it's just what a
Mhm.
blow, like we're one more injury away or a Caleb McGarry regression away from having Jalen Mayfield starting for us again. And I don't need that. I don't. We had such good O-line depth last year. Tuma Adoga, Elijah Wilkinson, German Ifedi. Chuma goes to the Cowboys. Elijah finds a starting role for Kyler Murray in the terrible Arizona Cardinals. Good for him. The Falcons bring back German Ifedi. I'm like, okay, good. They brought back a piece of that depth from last year just to cut him 2 weeks later. Now, granted, I heard some things. Maybe he was not a great locker room guy, but like, why even re-sign him in the first place just to cut him? It makes no sense to me. So I'm sitting here looking, I'm like, the offensive line depth is all of a sudden not as good as we thought. Bergeron's a rookie. Dalman still has a lot to learn. Lindstrom and Matthews we can count on. They're both very healthy, both very good alignment at their, as they are. Caleb McGarry, we can't have him regress. All of a sudden, we're back in this realm where we're like, well, hopefully there's no red flags. Hopefully there's no more injuries. Hopefully there's no regression because we don't have that luxury last year of plugging in Chuma, Elijah, and German in front of, Ben Newsel and Jalen Mayfield because Ethan Greenridge and Hennessy are done for the year, which really, really sucks. The Falcons had plenty of time to get over the Avery Williams injury because they had the entire offseason to build up guys. But now we're sitting here on August 18th, of course, 2.5 weeks away from opening day, and we're a little thin at the swing tackle position. So I do think the Falcons, with the money they have after preseason ends, bringing it back to Michael Walker as well. I'll let you talk about him in just a second, Micah. With the money we have going into the after the preseason ends, going into that bye week, we'll probably have about 16 million or so on the table. They have to find a way to add one more linebacker and add one more tackle or offensive line depth piece going into the season. Would you agree? And also, you have the floor for Michael Walker.
Absolutely. I'm agree that we need to go out and look and see who's out there to add to the offensive line because injury away from Jalen Mayfield starting, and every Falcons fan know that we don't want to see him out there, and um, but the good thing, like you said, we was hoping for Matt. Bergeron beat out Henry in that battle, and this all but guarantees Bergeron don't have his backup there. So, like you said, we need to go out and look and see who's out there and add another um piece to the line. And speaking of Michael Walker, that was a surprise to see that he was cut, but the Bears picked him up this week. I really like Michael Walker's energy, and he's a good guy, and so I'm glad giving him another shot.
Yeah, it's unfortunate how things played out for Michael Walker because you look at his rookie year coming out of Fresno State, he was looked at as like the most underrated piece on the
Hmm.
Falcons defense there for a year or two. Going into year 3 last year with Dean Pease, I think Rashaan Evans and D'Angelo Malone got more of the run than he did, but he had a chance this year going into a contract year to prove himself, and he started off camp running with Troy Anderson with the ones, running with Caden Ellis, but just did not have a great first preseason game, and he's regressed. The last year
Hmm.
or two, he's just, I wouldn't say he's regressed, but he just hasn't improved. And as a young player on a rebuilding team, you got to see that improvement year to year. I thought he was going to make the roster. I really did. I'm like, you know what? I really think Michael Walker is still going to be a very decent player. I think he's going to be a starting linebacker for us. I think that Nielsen's going to like him more than Dean Pease. I still would like us to bring back Rashaan Evans, and I still do think that. I still think it makes a lot of sense too. But I think maybe him being out there so long means he's waiting on us. He's waiting on us. Like it just makes there's too many other teams that have talked to him this offseason. The Steelers, the Eagles, the Titans have re-upped conversations bringing him back. He has not signed with any of those 3 teams. Like that leads you like those are teams that are either good or he has past connections with. Doesn't that tell you, Micah, that Rashaan Evans is kind of holding out for the Falcons to maybe give him a phone call?
That's the hope, and like you say, what cutting Michael Walker, you just have to think that Rashawn is who's next, and like it makes too much
Frank
sense.
Ginda.
And it makes too much sense for them to go out and add him back with like I've said in the like every episode, he was top 5 in tackles last year. Could that have been because the line was bad and he was
Yeah.
there? Yeah, but he still is a good he still is a good player, and he has a lot that he could add to this team, especially with his veteran leadership. And he is a player that could continue teaching Troy Anderson and teach Caden Ellis, and hopefully there sometime before the season start, um, he's added back to the team.
Yeah, it just makes too much sense. We have so much youth on that linebacker core. So much youth. Like D'Angelo Malone and Lorenzo Carter aren't your true linebackers. They're more of like these edge rushers. They're going to blitz. That's kind
Mhm.
of more what Caden Ellis is. We do think he could probably be a better pass defender, better coverage guy than he was in New Orleans. But we know that that third down, he's going to be screaming off the edge. Then you get to Troy Anderson, who is a really exciting prospect, but is still only a second-year guy who was playing quarterback in college. Like Tay Davis, I will say Tay Davis did look good in the first preseason game. I want to see more of him tonight. I do want to see more of Tay Davis. I do think he has the chance to be a good depth piece, probably be a gunner on special teams as well. But it just makes too much sense to bring back Rashawn Evans. Is he the cleanest pass guy? No. But he is probably better than what you have, and you have so much youth, it just makes sense to add a veteran. He loves Arthur Smith. That's the reason he chose us. He went to
Yep.
Alabama. He grew up a Falcons fan, was a first round pick for Tennessee. I think he got his 5th year tag, and last year was his 6th year in the league, and took over for Aluakon as best as and Deion Jones, granted, best as possibly he could. He did a great job last year. Wasn't the best in pass coverage again, but like made the tackles when needed to. And I just, even if he's not going to be a starter, I think he'd probably be a borderline starter for this team right now. Maybe there's a world where they start Caden Ellis and Troy Anderson, but it just makes sense. I think you could put him right there with Tay Davis because you're putting a lot of hope on Frank Ginda. You're putting a lot of hope on D'Angelo Malone and Lorenzo Carter as like true linebackers, and that's not who they are. Maybe it just means the Falcons aren't going to be using linebackers in their scheme. We haven't seen a lot from Ryan Nielsen yet in that regard. Maybe it just means the linebackers aren't going to be a thing. Maybe it means that DeMarco Helms is going to play more in the box and that they see him as a linebacker option this year. That means they're going to keep Darren Hall and Jalen Hawkins in the secondary. That could be it. But I still think as of right now, the Falcons could add 3 pieces, the top 2 being another veteran linebacker and the tackle. And
Hmm.
granted, after preseason ends, people will get cut. There will be guys available, especially from really good teams that have to make money laundering decisions. And it's just a matter of will the Falcons get the guy they want. Like I don't know if a guy like Isaiah Wynn, just throwing out a name, would be available after the preseason, being he just signed a new deal with Miami. But there's going to be tackles of his name that'll probably come available in the preseason that the Falcons should snag. I do think they should snag one more linebacker and one more
Hmm.
depth offensive lineman, whether it's a guard or a tackle. They need at least one more of each. The wide receiver conversation, we've talked about it all offseason. The Jarvis Land, excuse me, my mic just fell away. The Jarvis Landry conversation, it kind of fell through. I know they're still kind of in talks with him, but I don't know if that's going to happen. Corey Davis still has yet to be cut. But I think the Falcons can live with the wide receiver group they have now more so than they can with the running back, excuse me, the offensive line depth and the linebacker depth they have. Because let's look at the players that they could technically line up at wide receiver real quick before we get to Cordero. At the wide receiver position, Bijan's going to take snaps at wide receiver. Cordero is going to take snaps at wide receiver. Jonnu and Kyle Pitts are going to take snaps at wide receiver. You still got Scotty Miller. A guy like Penny Hart's going to make the team. They're serviceable. You got Parker Hesse, who isn't great, but Arthur Smith knows how to scheme him up. He's going to take snaps at wide receiver. Matt Collins, who I haven't mentioned yet. Drake London, of course. So when you look at the positionless thing that Arthur Smith talks about, the wide receiver depth isn't as bad, but that I still think that just one more guy would do a big difference. Whether it was Corey Davis, Jarvis Landry,
Hmm.
whoever. If it was one more guy, I feel like that'd be perfect. That's why I
Yep.
really wish that they were able to get Tyler Scott from Cincinnati, Raiders' #1 target. But of course, we didn't have that competition pick. I feel like he would have been right there for our reaching, and I'd be like, perfect. Our core is set for the weapons. But yeah, going in, I still think we need one more depth piece on the offensive line. one more depth linebacker, but if we really want to get greedy, I could take one more wide receiver too. Would you agree on that, or you think we're asking for too much here in year one of our window?
um, honestly, like I agree with all you said, but I could, like you said, we can go with the wide receivers we have now, and with us being able to have Kyle Pitts and John New line up at receiver, or Cordero Patterson and Bijan line up at receiver. We have a lot of
McCall
weapons on this.
Pruitt.
Yep, glad we brought him back. But we got a lot of pieces and what on this team, and like you said, is building a positionless offense on this team, and um, is it's a nice blueprint, and since he's been here, it's always been fast and strong, and that's what he's building. And um, that 100% explains that Matt Collins signing. Seen that the pictures of him and how big he's looking. Yeah, it's um can't start fast soon enough.
Yeah, and also one more name I forgot to mention, Cardero Hodge. They brought back was definitely better than Brian.
Hmm.
And also, screw Brian Edwards, by the way. He's snaked us for New Orleans. We traded it like we didn't trade a lot for him. It was like we're going risking low for high reward, and he was okay. I'm kind of surprised the Falcons cut him midseason last year, but screw him. He goes to New Orleans. Maybe the Derek Carr reunion is a reason. I'm sure that was probably part of it to go play with Derek Carr again. He has history with him. He played a couple of years with him, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfro, Josh Jacobs, the whole gang. That was in Las Vegas for a couple of years. But screw him. But Cordero Hodge, I think, was better than Brian Edwards for sure last year. Was another guy like Matt Collins, who's a basketball player, just jumps out the gym, can go get a jump ball. Even though you don't see
Hmm.
Mariota and Drake London, or excuse me, Mariota and Desmond Ritter throwing these jump balls. But it's I do think, the two other names you could mention, Mikel Pruitt and Carter Hodge, will probably be on this team for a reason. I do expect Scotty Miller to make the team. Uh,
Hmm.
it just depends on how much he plays in the second and third preseason game, but they sign him with guaranteed money. He's probably a slot guy, if especially if a guy like Penny Hart doesn't make the team, or if Frank Darby doesn't clear waivers like we think he will. It makes sense to just keep as many guys as possible. So talking about Cordero Patterson for just a second. He's missed 4 games each of the last 2 seasons. That's part of the reason some of the dummies like us that are not like us, that, are like, why'd they take the running back at number 8? They should have taken Jalen Carter, which I know Mike is a Georgia fan at heart. And I'll say this, if they would have took Jalen Carter, would I have been mad at the pick? No, not at all. But you have to give the dude a chance. You saw Jalen Carter bully some of the Ravens backup linemen last week, and the whole UGA fan base was back on the Falcons' throat about, oh, why did they take him, yada yada. Shut up. Like we're
And my
we're, we're yeah,
my
yeah.
my thing with us not taking Jalen Carter, it just made too much sense to not take him, because you seen the trouble he was getting in Georgia. If we would have drafted him, he would have been around the same people doing the same things, and risking the same trouble, and that would have been a risk for the Falcons to take. And I think it was smarter to go with the guaranteed pick with B. John Robinson and add to this offense that Arthur Smith is building. And B. John was a Arthur Smith type player. You see what he did with Derrick Henry.
And see, you and I talked about this many times since the draft. 8 years ago, when the Falcons took Vic Beasley, they took him
Hmm.
over a known Georgia running back. Now, granted, Todd Gurley, they're both out of the league already. Funny enough, Todd Gurley was a much better NFL player than Vic Beasley. No question
Hmm.
about it. The same people that were angry at the Falcons for taking Vic Beasley over the Georgia running back Todd Gurley are flipping their minds 8 years later when the Falcons do take the running back Bijan over the Georgia D lineman Jalen Carter. So it makes no sense. Um, I said this before, and I said this on Twitter literally the other day, and I actually ratioed a couple of Georgia fans by doing it. I'm like, if he had a G on his helmet, referring to Bijan, you guys would love him. You have to give him a chance. If you want to go be an Eagles fan, go be an Eagles fan, man. We've had a lot of people jump off the fan base in the last 5 years. I really could care less if you guys want to leave at this point. Like, just go. Be a part of another fan base. But talking about Cordero here, right? He's missed a month of play each of the last season. Still one of the best kickoff returners of all time. I really do hope if he has a healthy year, the Falcons do re-up him to one more like another year deal, just because of how much he's meant to the locker room and how much of a fan favorite he has been in a short time here in Atlanta. But we do know that he's still going to take some running back carries this year. He's still going to return kicks. He's still going to return some punts. He's still going to take some snaps at wide receiver like his days in New England and Minnesota. So and he's just a great locker room dude. He's helping reset the
Hmm.
culture of this franchise. But he's probably going to miss week 1. I think they're going to reevaluate him. He's not going to play the entire preseason, which means that Carlos Washington or Godwin is going to have an easier shot to play week 1 along with the rookie Bijan and Algier. But yeah, this is another reason why the Falcons took a running back. People are like, oh, you had a 1,000-yard rusher last year, and you have Cordero Patterson. Cordero's like 33 years old on a contract year. Like, it just, and also like us taking Bijan, you've seen a lot of other running backs that have been really high stouted, like Adrian Peterson, even more so like Saquon Barkley. They get hurt a lot because they don't have the depth behind them, and it makes that running back value pick not look as good because they get hurt. But when you pair Bijan with Cordero, hopefully for another year or two, and Tyler Algier, it takes less carries off him and makes him less able to get injured. Um, I don't know really where I'm going with this, but like just reverting it back to Cordero, how big of an issue could this be? And I guess on the bright side, what does it mean for Tyler, for Godwin, for Carlos, and for Bijan?
I mean, just piggybacking off of what you was saying with like with the Adrian Peterson comparison and how they get injured, it's like um when like you going back to the Falcons, if Bijan was getting all the carries and um he had somebody like a Carlos Washington behind him, where we needed Bijan on the field most of the game. He gets injured and he has less years on his NFL career. But when we could put Bijan Robinson with a Tyler Algier that was 1,000-yard rusher in season 1, with a Cordell Patterson who's been good since he's been in Atlanta, we have a lot more flexibility with Bijan Robinson, and it won't be problems come contract time with us having to worry about injuries. But going back to Cordell Patterson, they're not telling us what the injury is. It says undisclosed at the moment, and they're having him out for the rest of the preseason. Me personally, I think it's for precautionary reasons to keep him from getting injured, and since he's one of the older players. And we can see the same thing with Calais Campbell, since he is also one of the older players.
Yeah, and I think Arthur Smith learned his lesson his first year coaching. Matt Ryan didn't play the entire preseason. Neither did Ridley. Neither did any of those, starting guys that we had and, going into 2021. And the Eagles were a much better team. I'm not going to deny that. That was, Jalen Hurts' first season as a starter. Like, I knew
Mhm.
it'd be an uphill battle week 1 that year, but the Falcons absolutely got shellacked that first week because Matt Ryan had nothing in the tank. All the starters that took a rest it basically cost us the first week. We had to forfeit. Now, were the Eagles probably going to win either way? Yeah, but I don't think the Falcons would have lost 32-6 if everybody had played accordingly in the preseason. So you saw last year, you saw the starters play a little bit more. And I also think it helps that you have that only 3 games down. You have that week in case someone is a little hurt. After that third preseason game, they get that 2 weeks to recover. And it really helps with the Falcons' travel this year because now that they're home from Miami, we don't go out of town until we go to Detroit later in September. We're home this week against Cincinnati. Next Thursday against Pittsburgh. They get to stay at home for 2 weeks before week 1 and 2 against Carolina and Green Bay. The boys are gonna be home between Flowery Branch and the Bends for the next month.
Mhm.
So they're in a really good spot as of right now. They're in a very good spot to just kind of rest and to basically stay at home, bond together as a team. So I really do think Arthur has learned his lesson to play the starters at least some, get them set, get them ready to go. So week 1 we're not just flopping around out there. Last year we had a really good week 1 until about the 8-minute mark in the fourth quarter against you know who. But at least they looked more confident than they had in years previous, in years 1, with like even 2019 against the Vikings, they got blown out. 2020 against the Seahawks, blown out. The games just weren't even close. We got, I think, a punt block in the very beginning of the season in 2019. We gave up like 3 straight touchdowns to Russell Wilson in 2020. They weren't ready to play. So I think that they've definitely changed their tune a little bit, knowing that you have to get guys ready, but it does come at the cost of a couple injuries. But that's where the depth comes from. And if they're minor injuries, you can work around them. They're back week 1 or week 2. So speaking of those minor injuries, both of the Falcons corners, the rookie and of course the trade acquisition, Jeff Okudah and Clark Phillips, both in the cornerback room, both had some hamstring and injury scares there about a week or 2 ago, right in Miami. And continuing on to this week, how afraid were you when the news came out, and how relieved were you to hear, Micah, that Clark Phillips is day-to-day? He's back. He's fine. And Jeff Okudah should be back by week 1. I do think there could be a little bit of a rust issue, being that he does, he got traded for a reason. I do think there's a reason for him to be out there in the preseason. But how glad were you to see that they're fine? Because for a second there, the optimism that we finally have as Falcons fans was being pulled away by all our tackles and all our corners getting hurt. I'm like, no. But where are you sitting at with them now that we know what the injuries are?
Like you, I woke up to the Jeff Okuda news with injury, and they was initially reporting that it was like a bad injury, and I was like I was upset because if you watch the previous episodes, I still am really excited about the Jeff Okuda addition, and I'm excited to see what he could do beside AJ Terrell, and I'm hoping that he can get back in time to get enough reps and practice in where he's not out there looking rusty. But at the same time, I want them to give him enough time to come back and be 100% healthy, because he's had a problem with health in his career. And but we know the corner he can be. He could be that. He showed us when he was at Ohio, and I'm hoping he gets back to that with here in Atlanta with AJ Terrell on the opposite side of him, and with Clark Phillips. Like you said, he's back at practice, and um, he also was carted off the other week with an injury. But he's back at practice, so that's encouraging news, and that's part of our depth. And he's also one of those physical DBs. And like I said, that's what Ryan Nielsen's been focusing on, and I'm excited to see what Clark Phillips can do in year 1 as a Atlanta Falcon.
Now, we talked about the basketball wide receiver room a couple of minutes ago, right? I think it's fair to say the corners, they're kind of going a different route. With the Falcons corner group, they're seeing that they're going to go, they're building more of this shorter corner group, which, maybe it's a good reason that they are going one-on-one with our receivers every day. Because if you look at it, if our Falcons cornerback group comes to fruition like we want it to be, I could still see them having a huge weakness, and that's tall wide receiver groups, because they're going to be able to go up and moss them. Because you look at AJ Terrell, a little undersized. A guy like DK Metcalf, a guy like Michael Thomas, he's a little bit of issue with. He gives them as much of a problem as he can, but those guys are just going to get their own when they're 4 inches on him. Clark Phillips, the same stature, a little bit shorter than most guys. Probably the reason he won 4th round and not the 1st or the 2nd. Along with Jeff Okudah, not really the tallest corner in the world. D. Alford, Trey Flowers, some of these guys just aren't that tall. So it's kind of interesting to see the things that the Falcons have been building the last couple of years. They want these really tall, lengthy, almost basketball player like wide receivers, and for the corners, they want these shorter, fast man coverage demon DBs. So I don't know. I just hope that this Falcons defense makes it out of the preseason healthy, because I want to have some optimism. Otherwise, I just got to pull the plug and be like, we're still 6-11. Too many injuries are occurring. But because, the more injuries we get, the closer we are to the team we were last season. And that's not what we're trying to have. We're trying to avoid that. We're trying to have some hope this year. And we've done a good job up to this point. But 2 players that have also been cut who a couple of days ago now, so they're probably only about 24, 48 hours away from clearing waivers and just re-entering the practice squad. I really doubt anybody picks him up. Our fan favorite goofball Frank Darby and Taysom Hill at home. Dude's been following me around since college. Felipe Franks were both cut last week with injury reasons, but they should be back within the next day or two. Do you think they'll clear waivers, and do you think that they'll either one of them will make an impact on the 53 throughout the season, Micah?
I definitely see them back in the practice squad. I don't know, I don't know who would claim them off waivers. Um, but Frank Darby is a really good guy for the locker room. He brings the energy, he brings that hype, and he's like you say, he's a fan favorite, and we all love him. His energy, he's always happy, he's always dancing, he's always having fun, and that's what us fans like to see. And can't speak too much about Felipe Franks because we don't see much of him, and when he plays, it's yeah. But he has good chemistry with Kyle Pitts. that's that's all I can say.
I don't even think he has great connection with Kyle Pitts. There was a lot of times he got intercepted throwing a Stevie Wonder to Kyle Pitts back in college. So yeah, he's been haunting me since his college days. But yeah, for Frank Darby, he's almost like the Guillermo Heredia of the Falcons locker room. He's just this goofball, this pumper. Like he gets everybody ready. He keeps everybody happy. So I really don't think he'll be picked up by anybody. It's already been a couple of days, so I don't know how long the NFL waiver wire is. I know Major Leagues is 72 to 96 hours, so it's probably about the same in the NFL. So we're probably only about a day or two away from them clearing waivers and just being put back on the practice squad. I'm sure they haven't even cleaned out their locker, so they should be fine. But yeah, just a little bit of injury news to take care of. So yeah, let's get to a game that is going to be going on in 2 hours. Again, this will be uploaded after that happens, so just keep that in mind for those that are still listening to that point. We really appreciate it. Make sure you guys give us a like, comment, subscribe on the Around the Eight podcast on whatever platform you're listening to, whether it's our YouTube channel, whether it's something in Micah's, whether it's something of mine, Dylan's, Connor's, whether it's a clip out. I'm sure we'll probably go audio only as well eventually. But yeah, just whatever platform you guys are on, make sure you give us a like, comment, subscribe, and we really appreciate it. We see your comments, we see your reviews, and we'd love to reply with you guys as well. So yeah, you guys are helping build the podcast. But yeah, let's talk about this Bengals game in a couple hours, Micah. The starters are playing. We're not sure a finite time, whether it's a half, whether it's one series, a drive. We don't know yet, but it's good to see that we will see Bijan. We will see Drake London. We will see AJ Terrell. We will see David Onyemata. We will see insert player here tonight for a finite amount of time. I hope it's probably a quarter. I don't want it to be a full half. I also don't want it to be just one drive. I hope they play the first quarter and then maybe next game they play a half because they still get that week off before week one. But yeah, the starters are playing tonight. But yeah, let's talk about this game tonight. We talked about this about 2 hours ago on the phone. We said that we're glad that we're facing teams like Cincinnati and Pittsburgh in the preseason. While Pittsburgh wasn't a playoff team last year, they did finish strong. They did still finish over 500. They did beat us last year. They were over 500 pretty much every year. They're always in the playoff race. Top defense every year since they've got Mike Tomlin. And the Bengals, one of the top teams in the league right now. If they figure out a way to get Burrow on a friendlier extension than most of these quarterbacks, they're going to be good for a long time because it's going to free up money for them to keep T. Higgins, to keep Trey Hendrickson, keep a lot of their guys under core for a much longer period of time. And it's going to be really nice challenge for the Falcons tonight. It was the only game that we really got blown out in last year. The only game the Falcons did not compete in was against the Bengals in October last year. Granted, we had Cornell Armstrong and Darren Hall lining up against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and even Tyler Boyd was against, I don't know, probably D. Alford. So it just wasn't the prettiest matchup. The Falcons' run defense wasn't the greatest last year, so when they gave it to Samaje and Joe Mixon, they just, we're Ezekiel Elliott saying "feed me," but yeah, it's I think it'll be a really good test for us tonight. And what are some things you're looking for, starters or not?
The Falcons came into coming into this game as 6.5 point favorites, and the points have risen since the game against the Dolphins last week. With people starting to realize what this Falcons team is, and it's still people out there doubting, and the Falcons just gonna keep proving people wrong, proving people wrong. And I don't got much to say for the haters. I just got to say watch. But speaking on, I'm ready to see the starters out there. See what Desmond Ritter has been working on. He's been sharpening ups from the first practice to now. He's been looking better. I'm ready to finally see Bijan out there rocking number 7. Um, I'm ready to see Kyle Pitts back after his injury. I'm ready to see what um, Arthur Smith has ready for John Smith and Drake London and Matt Collins and Scotty Miller. And I'm excited about a lot for the offense. And y'all already know about the defense. Jesse Bates, all the new additions are ready to see them out there in the Falcons jersey. Really excited to see fans in the stands at Mercedes Benz. Giving us fans a lot of reason to be back in the stadium this year, and I'm expecting it to be packed tonight, and that's going to be really encouraging to see the Falcons building having another big crowd for probably the first time this season consistently. Probably be the first time since we moved into the bins.
Which, yeah, we've said it before. Like, the Falcons have had choking issues over the years, and I think part of that also comes back to them never having a home field advantage. It's hard, and you could say this about the Hawks sometimes too. The one thing the Braves have is Truist is always packed, and they win a lot of games late because the crowd rallies behind the team. They have a true home field advantage for 95% of games at Truist Park. You look at State Farm Arena, you look at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's more of an Airbnb to away teams. At least it has been the last couple of years. And you look at other bad franchises around the NFL, like the Lions over the years have been really bad. They've still found a way to win home games. Same thing with Cleveland. Same thing with Jacksonville because the fans still show up. The
Mm-hmm.
Falcons fans have not. And it's hard to close out games at home as the worst team because over the years the Falcons have been a very bad roster. It's hard to close out games as the worst team when you don't have that home field behind you. I think that'll be a huge difference this year. Them finally having more athletes than other teams they're facing and them actually having a home field advantage. That'll be a huge difference. And I hope it continues when we talk about the Hawks and a little bit later too. But yeah, as you said a minute ago, people are always talking about the all offseason we've been hated on by the media, and now the spreads, and now all of a sudden it's mid-August and people are trying to jump on our side. And I'll read you a tweet that I saw last night, and I talked about this with you earlier, from Warren Sharp, who is one of the bigger NFL analysts on Twitter. This got 2.1 million views. He's got 330,000 followers. He is a NFL analytic data guy for The Ringer and for Sports Grid. And he said last night, quote, from at Sharp Football, how did the Falcons start Marcus Mariota last year and stay within one score in 15 of 17 games? Hilarious bad. A lot of people replied with, and people blame Kyle Pitts. Respect Arthur Smith, all the stuff you'd expect. But I came in and I said two really good comments that I think wrapped up this Falcons offseason to a T. And I said, and I quote, and one of those two games, referring to the Thursday night game in Carolina, was a field goal by Eddie Pinheiro with 4 seconds left, and we lost by 9. That was basically a one-score game, so mark it down as 16. I said it was really 16 of 17, and you all wonder why we're so high on our club this season. We won 7 games last year with 1/4 the roster talent, but just stay sleeping on us now. Don't turn the hatred. It's too late for that. And I got a lot of likes, a lot of replies. And someone replied to me by the name of Eloy Sosa, one of my followers on Twitter. So shout out to you if you're listening. He said, everyone is going to be shook when the Falcons win the division this year. And
Yep.
I followed up and I said, we've been saying it all winter, but y'all weren't paying attention. Y'all instead decided to say, quote, Kyle Pitts is a bust. Quote, Bijan was a bad pick. Quote, should have gotten Lamar Jackson. Quote, Desmond Ritter is still your quarterback. Quote, the Saints and Panthers are just clearly better. Quote, it's just the preseason. Quote, the 28-3 curse will never end. All the excuses, and now tonight we have another chance to prove them wrong. I don't care that it's preseason. As you and I saw last week, Micah, we saw the things we wanted to see coming true. And so, we've had a lot of haters in our mentions. A lot of fan bases. I'm like, why do you hate us so much? Why does it matter to you? Like, oh y'all, you have a Desmond Ritter, you're picking in the top 5. No, like, just don't talk. Just don't talk, okay? So
I mean,
it's
with
I
them
think
saying that though, if we pick them
yeah.
top 5, like that's only gonna hurt them if this team that we now picking in the top 5 we gonna have next year. I just these fans don't think and they don't watch and they I hate how they speak ignorantly without knowing anything. Like it's so annoying, and I just can't wait for the Falcons to prove them wrong.
And I understand the surface level NFL fans and even Falcons fans to a degree being negative because we have been bad for probably the majority of their lifetimes. And I've given the Falcons a lot of grief in my lifetime too. They have not been a fun watch for many years growing up. Like they just haven't. But it takes just a little bit of research and not just listening to the national media talking heads that really don't know what they're doing in regarding it's impossible to cover the entire league in multiple sports. It is. And it just takes a little bit of research to understand this isn't the same Falcons team. We covered it
Mhm.
last episode how many things have changed since the Super Bowl, but it just simply is not. It really isn't. And I just don't know why they're not able to do enough research. Aloy Sosa came back and replied to me, said, "Yep, they have been writing them off. Even they have been writing them off, even though they had the worst roster in the division." This is his words, not mine. Falcons win the division at 12-5. London is going to have a breakout season. I replied, I said, I got us 10-7. I don't know if that wins the NFC South, but that's definitely going to be a top 7 seed in the NFC. That's a playoff team. Even if the Falcons lose in the wild card, which you see people saying, okay, you'll just lose in the wild card then. Like, I don't even care at that point. Like, I'll be
Back in the
happy.
playoffs.
That'll be a huge accomplishment for us. And somebody replied to me saying like, "Oh, well, you'll just lose in the wild card." I said, "You know what? Even if that's the case, I'd be super proud of them." Like, I'm not asking for a Super Bowl this year. I'm not like with the Braves where I'm like, they have to make a deep run. They have to at least make the World Series for me to be proud. Like, if they just win 10 games this year, win the division, win a playoff game, if they don't win the division, I would call that a very successful, enjoyable season for us. And so that's where I'm at. Um, as long as we stay healthy, man, the optimism will be there. And especially if we win week 1, if we get that over 500 monkey off our back and shut up the Carolina fans with Bryce Young, that'll be a huge. We'll definitely talk about that a lot in this next episode. We'll probably be back after the Steelers game to recap the rest of the preseason. I know you and I will dive deep into what we expect week 1. But yeah, last thing about the Falcons, just quick shout out to one of the best Madden YouTubers out there, Bengal. If you guys don't know him, close to 500,000 subscribers. He's doing a Falcons franchise this year. Pretty realistic for the most part. But he also just absolutely sucks at the game. So it's really fun. It's really fun to see his dry humor self just throw 4 picks a game and be like, what's going on? It's Madden's always a crappy game, but he makes it pretty fun. And it's also fun to see that he's using our team this year. I think he probably would have had a better reason to use him last year with the Mariota, with having less acquisitions. But we'll see how things prove out. But just for the fans that are itching to watch Falcons football on more days than just Sunday, or gaming YouTube fans in general, check out Bengal. Most people that are listening probably know of him. And yeah, watch this Falcons franchise. I think episode 3 drops tomorrow. So yeah, just quick shout out to him. I love that he chose this year. Um, I realized I clicked on the wrong one. I said
I was
Bengals
finna
instead of
press it.
Bengal. Yeah, you good. Yeah, you could have saved me if you wanted to, but that's all right. You ready to talk some Hawks?
Let's go.
All right, so yeah, guys, moving on to the Hawks here. We're making good time, trying to keep ourselves under 2 hours, and we'll talk some Hawks here real quickly before we wrap things up. The Hawks wave roster favorite last year. He was pretty much the Guillermo Heredia, the Frank Darby of the team. Didn't play a lot, but when he did, wasn't terrible, but was on a non-roster guaranteed contract. Vita Krejci, who they got from Oklahoma City, and pretty much the dump away. Kevin Herter turned into what was it? Mo Spates? Who'd we get back from
It
Sacramento? Who
was Justin Holiday and
Well, yeah,
Mo
Holiday and Mo
Harkless.
Harkless. Mo Harkless, that's what I'm thinking of. And we turned him into Vita Krejci. He wasn't terrible, but he was like the 14th, 15th guy. He was the hype man on the bench. He was the clapper. He was the water bottle getter. And so the Hawks waive him because I think they're thinking of bigger and better things. Um, and so the move isn't a shock to me, but you being the bigger, more knowledgeable Hawks fan than I am to a degree, take us through your thought process on it.
Um, with them waving him, I'm just guessing because at that summer league game he left early with an ankle injury, and we really haven't had any updates. anything about it, and they didn't say anything then. So I'm guessing it could also be a problem with his ankle, other than him not, contributing on the court. But last year he was like Blake said, he was a good the team. He was a good chemistry guy. He always kept the spirits up. First one off the bench, up celebrating after every score, after every good defensive play, after every block, anything. He was always there cheering on and supporting his teammates. And I always love players like that can um, cheer on their teammates even when they're not getting minutes or they're not playing. And um, I heard a lot of good things about him. What DeJounte Murray calling him his favorite teammate. Quinn Snyder saying he was always in the gym working, and Quinn Snyder gave him a chance um, last season, and he didn't disappoint with his passing. And I hope V is able to get another shot somewhere else where he can play some minutes.
Which I would not be surprised at all if that did happen. There's too many teams in the league not to give him a chance. So yeah, it's probably more than likely what will happen. But yeah, it's not really a shock. But in other news, Trey Young is working out with Steph Curry again, and let's just hope. Even I granted Trey, Steph Curry is the best shooter of all time. Ray Allen, him, and Reggie Miller, they're right there, 1, 2, and 3. I I hope that he's not working with the shooting mechanics again last year. Trae Young shot 30% from three. It was his worst efficiency. I do think him trying a little harder on defense last year definitely had a little effect on his efficiency. But Trae Young had so many just bricks from the arc last year where we're like, dude. So hopefully this time around he's working on him with his off ball stuff, because we know last year it just didn't come to fruition enough with it be him dribbling the ball on one side while DeJounte stood on the other, taking up space, and vice versa. You didn't see the off ball movement that Nate McMillan promised us. We'll see if Quinn Snyder's able to deliver it. But yeah, just what do you think they're working on, and do you think that things will be different around this summer with Trey working with Steph Curry?
Well, one thing I hope they're not working on is his shot mechanics. I just want him to be himself, play his game, and do what's been working for him. And what I hope they've been working on, like you said, is to off ball movement, building up his stamina, his energy, and where he's able to keep moving, where he can open up his teammates right out the ball in his hand, or get an open shot from moving around and losing his defender. And that's something we've seen with Curry most of his career. And if Trey Young's able to start doing that with DeJounte Murray and his team, uh, his points is just gonna continue to rise. His assists is gonna continue to rise, um, and that's really scary for a player that just averaged 26 and 10 last year on bad efficiency. And um seeing the work that the other players are putting in with DeJounte Murray, we see he's posting on Instagram almost every night. He's in the gym working and working late night. It, like he's saying, the grind don't stop. You got to work for it. And he's saying this going to be his best year yet. And he's you can see he's really determined to help change this Hawks team and make them a winner again. And we've seen DeAndre Hunter in the gym. We've seen Jalen Johnson in the gym. We've seen Onyeka Okongwu in the gym. And a lot of the Hawks have been in the gym, and I'm hoping it's not just um for views, attention. I hope they're actually working and bettering themselves to where they they make this Hawk team a winner again.
I love hearing those news nuggets too, but it's not anything we haven't heard before. We've heard guys in the gym, we've heard them making changes. I'm willing to give Snyder a little bit of the benefit of the doubt, but like at the same time, we're like, oh, we don't have Lloyd Pierce anymore. We have Nate McMillan, and it didn't work out. So I know that it was great that we got Quinn Snyder mid-year last year, because he probably wouldn't have signed with us if we waited to fire Nate at the end of the season, because so many other jobs came open. I really do think he's a great head coach, Mikey. You talked about it. You looked at let's look at the 2-gamer they had in Miami at the end of March, for example. The well, granted, the Hawks lost both games. They played Miami a lot tougher, and that's probably the reason they won that playing game. The only team to beat the Heat in the Eastern Conference last year was the Hawks. Did they let us win? I don't know. I hope they. I hope that's not the case. But what I will say is Snyder made adjustments. He made much more adjustments and was a much smarter coach than Nate McMillan. The negative side is the defense definitely fell off a cliff after Quinn Snyder took over. The Hawks had some of the worst perimeter defense ever throughout that plan going into it and in that Boston series. I mean, Derek White, splash. Al Horford, splash. Jaylen Brown, splash. Marcus Smart, splash. They every time the Hawks would have a little bit of momentum, the Celtics would come down and their guys weren't missing what we were. But simultaneously, we still had some really big choke jobs after Quinn Snyder took over. So I'm not expecting him to be the savior. I do think this team needed more change. And that's why I'm hoping that this isn't it, that this isn't the final roster. I do think this team needs to make one more move. It's still August. We got 2 months. We still got time. I I I don't think that Siakam thing is happening until it's a trade deadline type conversation like what you and I talked about earlier. It looks like a certain, but Masai messed it all up. They wanted Kobe and AJ, and the Hawks are like, hell no, which just makes sense. We'd be willing to give you one. Maybe we'll give you Sadiq and Kobe, AJ, but we get to keep our first round pick. We're not going to give you Sadiq, Kobe, AJ, a first, a second, and DeAndre Hunter. Just no. Or no, it doesn't make that sense. Would it make us better in the short term? Yes, but we don't know if he's going to extend. So that's the only thing. But I still hope that the Hawks find a way to move Clint Capella to Dallas. I get Trae Young loves him, and I get that maybe we still need him because we don't know how Onyeka is going to be with the foul trouble this year with his first year as a starter. Still undersized. I get that. But Clint Capella has just not been a great player the last 2 years. He has really regressed since getting that extension. And Dallas, for some reason, Luka and Kyrie really want the guy. And in exchange, we'd probably be getting Josh. What is it? Josh Christopher is what's the name of the guy I'm thinking of, Micah? Josh Green. What's his
Josh
name?
Green.
Yeah,
Josh
Josh
Green.
Green. The Hawks would probably be getting back Josh Green and JaVale McGee. I make that move in a heartbeat. It'd be Capella in a second for Josh Green and JaVale McGee. Is JaVale McGee better than Clint Capella? I don't know. It's definitely not much. It's not much of a drop off, I don't think. Especially since I wanted JaVale on this team a year or two ago. I think he'd be a very good backup center for Onyeka. And I think Josh Green being another young player would make it easy to not be able to have to bring back Sadiq Bey. It's another young player who would get a chance here, another shooter in the Quinn Snyder system. So if they do find a way to still make one more move, which I really need to buy in on this team, make one more move. Say you traded John Collins, you drafted really well with Kobe and Muhammad. You're giving Quinn Snyder the keys that Nate McMillan didn't have. I still need to see one more move because as of right now, we're still the same team minus Johnny Collins, which he is not the same player he was 3 years ago. He still averaged 16 for us last year, but still a starter on this team. I don't know if we can trust both Jalen Johnson or Sadiq Bey along with Onyeka to start. It takes away some of the depth from our bench, so I need us to make that Clint Capella in the pick move for Josh Green and JaVale McGee. I think JaVale McGee, I don't know if it's a direct update over Capella, but him and Josh Green would definitely upgrade this team, and I need to see at least one more move going into the season to buy in. Because as of right now, I'm still looking at us. I'm like, yeah, we look like a just over 500 playing team. Same old, same old. What about you?
Yep. We definitely have to change something because, like you said, we all we did was lose John Collins, which was 16 point per game player. Um, so for the Hawks to be what it's looking like right now for them to be counting on players just to get that much better and just to fill a hole is not logical to me. And I'm hoping we go out and make a move where we can get someone else to be a scorer for this team. And whether it's now or at the trade deadline, um, a deal definitely has to be made. And um, like you said, with Capella, he's been the name that's been thrown out the most, and that can be something that happens within the coming months.
And I get Trae Young's buddies with Clint Capella. He's buddies with Bogey. Like, I get that you want to have your superstar surrounded by players he loves, but who's to say he wouldn't love JaVale McGee or Josh Green? Like, you have to be willing to let go a little bit. And I'm really shocked that both DeAndre Hunter and Clint Capella are still on this team. I am. I thought that at least one more would be gone. Maybe they're gone
Uh,
midseason. I can still see that, but I need to see one more move to buy in. Go ahead, Micah.
I think a thing with them holding on to Capella is to help keep Trey happy because he's seeing the rumors, even though they've been false about Trey wanting out. Um, that can be something that may happen with them not adding somebody, then them dropping, losing Trey's best friend. Um, so that they could be looking to just keep Trey happy until they find a right deal that Trey would approve of. But at the same time, you can't when running a team, you can't look to please one player when it's not gonna help make the team better because that one player, that one best friend, that one um your superstar's favorite can be holding the team back from making the next step in their quest to a championship.
And then this is news from like literally less than an hour ago from Dukes and Bell today. Hope we can share this. Steve Coonan was on the program like he is usually once a week with them, and Mike Bell, asked him a question, and quote from Mike Bell 40 minutes ago from at Dukes and Bell 929, a quote from their interview. For those that do want to check it out, that's where it's from. He said to Steve Coonan, quote, "Let's see what Quinn Snyder can do with the young guys, and if we're viable, we make some moves at the trade deadline." Steve Coonan responds, quote, "That's an excellent thesis, young man." I don't know why Steve is calling Mike a young man. They're both dudes that are in their middle age. Steve Coonan is just a goofball in general. But what are your thoughts on hearing that quote? Does that make you think, ugh, like that's just the same old, same old?
That's definitely discouraging. I honestly don't see their vision right now because, like I said, we lost John Collins, and that's all we've done. Well, you can say we added the rookies, but I doubt they see any playing time. And Patty Mills and Wesley Matthews aren't gonna give us 16 a game, 15, 16 a game. And like I said, I don't see their vision, and I don't I don't like what I'm hearing right now. Um, for improvement, I'm not seeing any improvement, seeing regression, if anything.
Great. So, in other news, one of the last topics for tonight, guys, the schedule released about 24 hours ago, and I always found like the NBA has a weird time to release their schedule. They wait till like 2 months previous. Now, granted, I think the MLB does a much different job. They do it like June the year before. Like the Braves were out there streaking in the month of June, and we're getting our schedule released for next year. I'm like, okay, like that's cool, but like, can we focus on this season? We're only 60 games in. I feel like they released a little early. Um, but then you look at it simultaneously, it seems like the NBA does it a little late. We're 60 days from tip off. October 25th is opening night for the Hawks, and we're just getting their schedule. Micah, let's go through the first 10 games here, right? We
Hmm.
started 7-3 last season. Let's go through the first 10 games. I'll read them out, and we can go through them a little slower if you want. And let's see what we like about the start of their season because that's a big part for us. We got to start fast, but we did last year. We fickled out in the month of December. We got to be able to replicate that again. We can't get behind like we did in these years past. So we'll start with the first 10 games. I got pulled it up from Hawks.com. Going over the preseason real quick, they get Cleveland and Memphis, and then they get New Orleans. It seems like we always have a game with New Orleans in the preseason. We always play them in like Montgomery. It seems we give the state of Alabama a game between the two teams that are in between them. So I think that's kind of cool. They wrap up the preseason with Indy and Philadelphia. It's whatever. 5 games this preseason. And then they have about a week off from the 20th. Opening night in Charlotte on the 25th against LaMelo Ball And the Charlotte Hornets, a team that's really not that good, but found a way to beat us 3 or 4 times last year. I guess you could say it's a little bit of a rivalry between the fan bases. I don't know if it's really that much on the court, kind of like with the Falcons and Panthers. But that's opening night, and then they come back for a home opener. I really like the home opener being the New York Knicks, October 27th, my mom's birthday. I'm a 28th baby. Hopefully, the Braves are also in the World Series at this time. So hopefully, I have two teams, and the Falcons also, going on that week. Hopefully, we get two teams going on at this time. So they start off at Charlotte, come home opener at the Knicks. Third game of the season is really rough though. They go at Milwaukee Sunday the 29th, Sunday night. So it just depends on how healthy Milwaukee is to start the season. We usually play really good versus them. Back to back though, Monday night they come back, face Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves. Then Wednesday night that same week at home versus the Washington Wizards before going out on a 3-game trip from the November 4th to the 9th at New Orleans, at Oklahoma City, at Orlando. How many is that? I want to say 7 games. They come home before the in-season tournament starts. They face Miami on the 11th. The in-season tournament starts on the 14th at Detroit, and then they get the Knicks again. The Knicks and the Sixers headed towards Thanksgiving. That's about the first 10 games or so. Do you think that'll be a tough stretch for the Hawks to start the year? Because they got to start fast.
Yeah, like going back to last year, starting with the preseason, the Hawks played in Abu Dhabi, and Trae Young had me ready. Like he scored 30 points in a half. He was cooking Drew Holiday. I was like, this finna be his best season yet. And then he fell off a cliff. And
Oh yeah, we cooked the Bucks too, and that wasn't your average preseason game. We were actually trying to show out for some of the Abu Dhabi fans out there. They were taking it a little bit more seriously than most average preseason games. But yeah, they looked really good in preseason, and they started 7-3. I was really excited. But yeah, November and December hit me for the rest of the year. But yeah, go on.
yeah, we it's imperative for us to get off to a hot start, win games that we need to win. That Charlotte game, we can't play with the teams that we know are worse than us because we've seen how that has affected us last year. We would have been in the playoffs and not the play-in if we beat the teams that we should have beat last year. And that's been a problem with the Hawks. And hopefully with Quinn here, he changes that and has them take the teams that's worse than us more serious.
And have Trae Young try every night. Because it
Absolutely.
comes back to him too. There's a couple nights he just takes off. The
Hmm.
Hawks have to realize that they are an 82-game team, but not a 16-game team. They have to figure out how to be an 82-game team, and that starts with Quinn taking every opponent seriously and Trae Young not taking nights off. Because it starts with him, it trickles to Dejounte, and it goes down the board. But yeah, those are, even if they don't make another roster move going into the season, that is something I have to see change on the court. Is them take every game seriously. If we lose November, let's see, let's say we lose November 1st to the Wizards, we can't be like, oh well, it's November 1st. No, those are the games that get you between the play-in and the playoffs. So the Hawks
Hmm.
have to take every game, especially a lesser opponent this year, more seriously.
And especially those games against teams that you know is going to be at the top because we need the tiebreakers over there, and we don't want to have a record where we end up tying and it's good enough to have us out of the play-in, but because we lost those games and lost the tiebreaker, we have to end up playing in the play-in. Then we end up getting the uh, top two team in the East. We got to take these games serious and go out there and act like each game is their last, as some players say.
But yeah, like I'm looking at this, the to start the season at Charlotte, they should win. It depends on how fired up LaMelo is that night. But like at the same time last year, the Hornets beat us 3 times. Once at the very beginning of the season, but I do think opening night the Hawks are going to be trying. It seems like, would you say last year against the Hornets, they didn't even seem like they were caring out there? Like they blew 2 20-point leads at home without LaMelo. Do you think they really cared in those games?
They looked real uninterested to me.
And do you think being its opening night, they'll be willing to try a lot harder?
Hopefully, with
And
it being in Charlotte too, and go out on the road and win that first game on the road and
there'll be Hawks fans in the building. There'll be Hawks fans in the building.
Definitely. We stacking the wins um and build the platform from the first game to game 82.
And then let's talk the second game, home opener versus the Knicks. I think that's the team you kind of want to see in the home opener.
Mm-hmm.
That'll get the fans juiced. Last
Yep.
year we saw Houston and we outplayed them for most of the game. We saw Houston and Orlando the first two games. We took care of business. We third game we slipped up versus Charlotte. Um, but yeah, like I think I could see a world where the Hawks are excited to play these two teams when they're usually not. And starting
Mm-hmm.
like, do you think they'll start 2-0 based on these first two games?
Yeah.
Screw the Knicks too,
The
right? Just like the Yankees.
Yeah, the Knicks will definitely be more of a challenge than the Hornets. So they're definitely looking at what we've seen previous years. They'll definitely take the Knicks more serious than they take the Hornets. Um, and that's like you said, that's a game that's going to get the fans in the seats from the 2021 playoff series. And um the New York fans are still a little salty, a little mad about Trey Young shushing them and taking a bow on them. But Trey's still their owner, so I
Well,
expect us to go 2-0.
they love to bring up, well, he's 5-12 versus them head to head. It
What
doesn't
happened when
include.
it matters?
It didn't. Well, now we sound like Phillies fans with Reese Hoskins slamming the bat. But yeah, I don't think the 5-12 includes the head to head they had in the playoffs. So really, it's what 9 to 13.
13.
So it's. I know that they did beat us 3-4 2 years ago. We split last year, which it made sense. They were a little better than us. But the funny thing with the Hawks Knicks games last year, real quickly, none of the games were close. Like we blew them out twice, and they blew us out twice. There was like no high action Knicks game last year, whether it was at State Farm or in the Garden. Didn't you find that a little odd?
Yep, and I know that one game in New York, DeJounte Murray went down with an ankle injury, and that the same thing happened in a previous year with Trey Young going down with an ankle injury in New York. Hopefully that trend stops this year.
Yeah, I was afraid when we went up there for like game 5 of the playoffs. I'm like, if we're winning late in the game, stay off the sideline, guys. Those people are crazy. They'll trip you. They're gonna try to hurt you guys. They are sore losers. Like, I need
Hmm.
us to get out of there. But yeah, like even that first game we had at early November last year in the Garden, I want to say it was like the 6th game of the season. We were down by like 20 points. Trey Young's out. He's hurt. His eye gets screwed up. DeJounte was like, it
Yeah.
was his Hawks coming out party. We find a way to win. We're like, yeah, now we get another guard to own you guys in the Garden. It was a it
Hmm.
was it was a really good start to the season. I had us believing, and we were about 9-5. AJ hit a game winner against the Raptors, a team we never find a way to beat. But like they just, yeah, we got to find a way to continue on. Like their third and fourth game, they go at Milwaukee. That'll probably be their home opener. That'll be a really tough game. I'm sure they'll probably find a way to lose that one. But then you have a back-to-back with Minnesota, and then 2 nights later with Washington. You have to take both those games. They have to start 4-1 like they did last year. If you start off 3-2, I'm like, it's the same Hawks. I can already tell. I've watched them too much.
Hmm.
And then yeah, that we'll talk about the road trip before they go to the in-season tournament at New Orleans, which they're almost like Hawks West. They're always a really good team. Terrible coaching, horrible injury issues. Um, they go to Oklahoma City, who's looking to with SGA and company to make it out of the play-in this year. And make it into the top 6, at least get closer. They were really good last year for what it was worth. They looked like they'd be a bottom feeder and the Hawks would be a play-in team. They were one game worse than us. They played like a very good basketball team for most of the year last year, and they just got better this offseason. And then they go to Orlando. And Orlando, while the Hawks have taken care of them in Hawks history, seems like we always take care of Orlando. Now they got Paulo. And Paulo and DeJounte are going to make things interesting every time they match up with one another. So in that 3-game road trip, what are you expecting? Again, at New Orleans on the 4th, the 6th at Oklahoma City, and the 9th at Orlando.
Um, we got to come out of that 3-0. Those are teams that I say that the Hawks are better than, and like I said, we got to beat the teams that we are better than. We can't take a night off because they're a lesser team. We got to take care of business. Um, Got to play like we're playing against the best team against the worst team. We gotta, build. Like I said, stack wins, stack, and build on each game. What didn't go right this game? We're gonna find out this game.
Hmm. Get
What went
fat and
wrong
happy with
again?
the wins.
Fix it. Yes, and we can't get complacent. We can't get happy. The league is ever changing, and we have to continue to build and continue to get better.
Yeah, it's also like it seems like they're just too complacent to want to make the plan. And maybe that's I hope that Quinn Snyder changes that. I think one more roster move and them not taking other opponents less seriously, I think is the big difference. But yeah, last storyline for tonight, the in-season tournament, I think could be a thing that the Hawks do take really initiative of, and being that they do count to your regular season games, maybe that's 4 or 5 wins we get this season that we didn't have in the previous seasons. In our group, right? I'm pretty sure it's isn't it
It's Philly,
well
Indiana, Detroit, and Cleveland.
in Cleveland. Well, I'm trying to remember if it was groups of 5 or 6 because I'm seeing it right now.
Um,
Like, yeah, it's Philly, it's Indy, it's Cleveland, and it's Detroit. I'm looking at that group as long as Philly doesn't go dummy. And granted, who knows what they look like, what's going to happen with James Harden and Joel as of right now. But if Philly doesn't go dummy, the Hawks should win that group. Like I know Cleveland, you could maybe make an argument that they're a better team than us. For whatever reason, we talked about this earlier. The Hawks always play some of their best basketball against Cleveland. I don't know what it is. They always find a way to beat them, even if they're the better team. So I kind of expect that here. I mean, I guess maybe with Cade Cunningham back this year, maybe Detroit takes a step up. The Pacers, no, I'm not really. It just depends on as long as you don't let Tyrese drop 50 on you, you should be able to beat them. Which
or
no,
let Jordan Nwora beat us again. That
which,
game made me so mad. I was at that game.
which granted that probably will happen, right? But yeah, like the Hawks should find a way at least be top 2 in that group, and I think top
Mhm.
2 make it into the in season tournament in Vegas. Which if that's the case, like I want them to take this seriously because it makes them feel like the regular season matters and they count to your games. So
and
yeah,
and it would be nice to be the first team to win the in season tournament in NBA history.
but yeah, I think it's an interesting move by the NBA for sure. I think it'll take a couple years to get used to, but it keeps the competition up and it gives us like more meaningful basketball. I feel like they should have done it a little bit later. I feel like they should have done it in
Hmm.
like after Christmas. I think it's a little early being like 10 games in. I think they should have done it like after Christmas before the All-Star game to give us like that little middle ground between okay, here's the beginning of the season aura, here's like Christmas basketball, and then like it kind of dies off for a little bit. You get the All-Star break, you get the trade deadline. We talked about it the dog days. I feel like they should have put it before. So maybe they'll move it in a couple of years. I was a little hesitant to hear about it, but now thinking about it from the Hawks perspective, I'm like, this might help us. So we'll figure it out. But yeah. Any last things about the Atlanta Hawks?
um, well, I just want to explain for the viewers that don't know what the in season tournament is. Is
Sure.
basically all the teams in the NBA competes is no matter your seed. It's believe 6 groups, 3 in each conference, 5 teams in one group, and 8 teams advance to the in season playoff tournament, and it's single elimination to to the championship, and in the in season tournament playoffs. I believe it doesn't matter which conference you're in. It's just um based off your seed in the tournament, and yeah, the championship be in Vegas, and like I said, I hope the Hawks would be the first team to win the in season tournament in NBA history.
It'll be really funny to see like if Wemby and the Spurs do it year one, and they're gonna be like the third, they're gonna be like the 12 seed, and they just find a way to win it. Be like, wow, well that's interesting. It'll be fun to see like a really bad team win it. Be like it'll be one of two ways. Oh, means that either team can win it, or they just don't care. So
I
it'll
know,
be yeah.
I know. Whatever team win, the fans gonna be clowning them when they celebrate it. They gonna be like, they think they just won an NBA championship. Like,
It's
if the
funny.
Hawks win it, let's go.
we're gonna have like a not a parade on Peachtree. We're gonna have like a horn like that's one, and they hang it in the Raptors like in a little half size banner. But yeah, I think that's good stuff. I did see something come out yesterday about national TV games. I think the Hawks are like in the middle tier, which makes sense. That's what we are. But
um,
I think we have like what 10 national TV games,
yeah, not counting NBA TV, we're at 5.
which we can't even watch NBA TV. Who first of all, NBA TV games are terrible. The cameras look like they're from 2007. I don't watch them ever. I can watch an MLB Network game. I can watch an NFL Network game, even NHL Network if it's the playoffs. I think it's fine. NBA TV, I'm like, what is this? What is this? This is like 2007 coverage out here. So that's the only thing I don't like about it. But only like now that you think about it, 5 national TV games. It seems like we don't play really well on national TV, so I'm like I'm fine. I'd rather listen to Bob, Neek, and Vince anyway,
Yeah.
and Lauren and Trevor and the whole gang. But we also just don't deserve it. Like Trae Young has not been himself the last 2 years, and we're like a 500 team. So I don't know. Just the national team. Do you wish they had more, or are you fine with them having less national TV games?
I personally don't. Whether I was happy with it or not, I don't think the Hawks fans or the Hawks have an argument to say we deserve more games because with the roster we have right now is on paper worse than what we had last year, and I think it's good for us to have as little as we do, um, given how they've played in previous years, and hopefully that motivates them to play better and see that they're not getting the recognition that they think they deserve. And yeah, I think it's a good number for what they shown lately.
Hot take for you here. Do the Hawks finish with a winning record?
Mm,
Because you said they're worse on paper, which you don't like hearing. And I'm supposed to believe that all the issues are going to go away. Will they finish with a winning record, Micah?
being a fan, my answer is hopefully, but
All right.
but my guess, like you made a joke about it earlier, saying 41-41, but that is not unrealistic, unrealistic prediction.
There's just too many ifs. Like Quinn's system has to be perfect. They have to make another move. They have to not take other players seriously. Trae Young has to be more efficient. Yada yada. These players that haven't proven it have to prove it. Just how many years have we fallen into it? This is the 3rd year in a row. Sorry if I sound a little negative, but like I'm a realist at the end of the day. Do I want the Hawks to go 82-0, 98-0, win the championship? Sure, of course I do. But like it's just they have not been a fun watch the last couple winners. Even the year they made the Eastern Conference, they didn't really turn it on until March because the season went through May, and it really made up for the Braves having a really bad first half before they won the World Series. But like they just have not been a joyful watch. Them along with the Falcons, it's been Georgia sport winners. Very depressing. The last couple years. So yeah, like I wish the best for the team. I say that all the time. Like Braves Twitter hates me, Hawks Twitter kind of half hates me, Falcons Twitter I don't know. I don't really know where I am in the Falcons Twitter pedestal as of the mount right now, but like I do love the teams. I want them to win every game. I'm just a realist. I try to bring it as real as possible at the end of the day, and I feel like that's what you do too, Micah. That's what this platform is for. Um, but yeah, like I think that's pretty much the wrap of the show. Do you have anything else regarding the Hawks?
I think we covered everything that's been out for the Hawks.
So yeah, one last thing, guys. For the Atlanta United fans out there, we didn't forget about you guys. They do have which I know the fan base is huge. Don't get me wrong. I still watch them. A good amount. But I think they're finally back in MLS play. They've been pretty much all for the last month since losing and PKs to that Mexican club team about a month ago. I was like, dang, Guzan, you didn't make a single save. You gotta go, bud. You gotta retire. But yeah, I think they play Seattle tomorrow or Sunday afternoon. I saw them flying from their social today. But yeah, they gotta get rid of that manager. Like it's ever since Tata left, they've and Earls left, as Connor said last episode, to go back to the Premier League. They've messed everything up. Their future went from bright to thin, and I don't know. They're not the same butterfly effect they had when they first came to Atlanta. Like Would you agree, Micah? I'm sure you watched them a little bit more when they were new, more than you do now that you're like year 5, year 6.
Yeah, I watched the championship. Um, that was the one full game I watched.
Really?
But
I watched a lot of the games that year. Huh.
yeah, I remember I switched off from the Denver Nuggets game. That I remember it because that we had just won championship. Then I went back to the Hawks versus Nuggets game, and then John Collins got ejected, and he slapped the kid when he's trying to do a high five. Yeah, that was funny, but
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
but
Wow.
yeah, this team haven't really heard much about them since then, and losing Joseph Martinez and I don't know
Amon.
what went wrong with that, but
Hmm.
from what I knew about him before, I say that's a big loss, and seeing him now in Miami with
Tata and
Messi,
Messi. Yeah.
yeah, that's a sight to see.
That's what we had. We didn't have Messi, granted, but we had a younger Joseph Martinez and we had Tata Martino. He left us for Mexico, completely flopped on his face. But yeah, Frank de Boer wasn't the guy. Boca Negra, he isn't the guy. They gotta. I don't know. Their future was so bright for a little bit. They replaced Almiron with Pity Martinez. He was good. Barco was great. Gressel was a fan favorite. Kevin Kratz, James McCann. They had a really defensive line, really good like defensive back line. They were very veteran led with Parkhurst, with Runowitz. They had Pogba's older brother. Guzan was still very good for the first couple of years, but it just seems like this team doesn't have the same butterfly effect they did when they first came over. You know, because when they first came over, the Braves were still in a rebuild. The Hawks were about to rebuild. The Falcons had just lost a Super Bowl. And they were like this fun little new toy, right? For a couple of years, they made the playoffs the first year. They were at Bobby Dodd, moved to the Bens. They win it the second year. They were an absolute juggernaut at the MLS level. They were still really good a year later, and they were pretty good in the COVID season until the epidemic came out. I think they hadn't lost a match until the season. They hadn't lost a match in the season until after the pandemic, and that's pretty much where I had my falling out with Atlanta United. I've kind of picked up and watched them every now and again, but it's just not the same fun that they were the first couple of years. And now that the Braves are a lot better, now that the Hawks at least have a Trey Young, and the Falcons are no longer this kid with no lunch money. Put it that way. No, Atlanta United is just not the same toy they once were. But I'm actually really surprised to hear that you didn't actually watch them for the first couple of years. Why is that?
Um, I honestly don't know.
I mean, I do think soccer is boring, but for a couple years, I didn't for whatever reason. I didn't like fall in love with soccer, but like I was able to watch it without being bored for a couple years. And now I sit back again. Now that I'm so much more into the majors and not just the Braves. Now that I'm so much more into the NFL and not just the Falcons. I follow the NBA to a T as well. I watch playoff hockey. It's hard to also love soccer because it's
Hmm.
just as an American, it's just not the same, especially the level of play we get. Maybe if I got into European leagues, it'd be different. But I'm an ACL fan. I'm a Gators fan, and that's it. So like I don't have I don't really have any like other love for international teams. So it'll take me a lot to get into one. But yeah, any other final thoughts on the show this afternoon? Now turned even. The Falcons kick off in like 85 minutes. Same with the
Um,
Braves.
just ready to watch this Falcons game. Hopefully, I see what I want to see, and rise up.
Will Jock hit a homer on the Braves tonight?
No,
Will Jock hit a homer on the Braves this weekend?
no,
Will Jock hit a homer on the Braves in San Francisco next weekend?
yes,
Will Luke Jackson give up a run versus the Braves this weekend or next weekend? He's on their team.
absolutely.
Okay. All right, all right. Do the Falcons have any former players on the Bengals that I can twist that to? I don't think so. But yeah,
Nope.
um, I appreciate you guys listening. If you made it this far, make sure you guys, once again, give us a like, a comment, subscribe. We appreciate the support. We're a new podcast, still learning. Hopefully, Dylan or Connor will be back with us next episode. Micah and I should have one more episode before the month of September starts. We'll recap this game and the Steelers game, any other Hawks news, any other college football news, because the season will be right around the corner. We'll definitely cover UGA and Georgia Tech one more time next episode. How Atlanta United does, how the Braves do going into this West Coast trip, the rest of this homestand. But yeah, Braves on New York. As always, 6-1 week against the Mets and the Yankees. But yeah, we appreciate you guys listening. For Blake, along with Micah. You guys make sure you can follow us on Twitter. Our ats are right here at Newsome Sports ATL, at Micah TYN. Make sure you guys give us a follow. We give you a follow back. We love talking sports. We love all the support. And so, yeah, we'll see you guys soon. You guys make sure you enjoy your weekend. I'm sure you guys will probably see this either Saturday. I'll try to upload this either tomorrow night or Sunday at latest. So you guys will see this around the 19th or the 20th. And so, yeah, we'll see you guys one more time before the NFL season starts. We'll talk one more, episode of August Braves Dog Days baseball before things get interesting in the month of September, including, UGA and Georgia Tech kicking off. But, yeah, any last words, Micah?
Go Hawks, go Falcons, go Braves, go Dogs.
No. See you guys next time. Go ATL.